ほら、ルフィ、今一緒に海賊になる仲間を探してるんだ。
Hello guys, welcome to my channel The Wandering Zoro, your go-to destination for anime-related content. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest videos. In today's video, we're going to be diving into part 1 of the series, What If Hero Deku Regressed Back in Time to School Days? So be sure to stick around until the end, and let's get started. In the 4 years after Izuku, 2A, 2B, lots of heroes and the Big Three failed to stop All for One and Shigaraki. Earth's population dropped from 8.9 billion people to just a few thousand because of All for One's Nomu armies finishing more than 99% of the people they encountered. The ones left alive were to be nothing more than simple workers that will build All for One's empire, and their children will be the ones who serve him loyally. Izuku fought and fought for those 4 years, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up to All for One until he lost his daughter, and he disappeared for 1.5 years to train to get strong enough. Tokyo was now a complete wasteland with no signs of life. It was a massive crater with thousands of destroyed buildings lining the crater. Inside the crater stood 3 figures. The first one was a tall, well-built man with short white hair, a bronze horn and red eyes. He was wearing a nice tailored suit and had a dark grin on his face. The second figure was a man with waist-length white hair and was covered in nasty scars, along with the right side of his face being burnt to the point his healing quirk didn't work on it. The last figure was a 20-year-old man with green hair that was turning white from stress and mental and physical exhaustion. He was wearing a badly damaged dark green costume with white arm bracers and black leg bracers. Around his neck were the rags of yellow cape that was barely hanging on by a thread. His name was Izuku Midoriya, and he is facing All for One and Shigaraki, hoping to finally end this here before any more innocents have to die. Also, you finally come to face me? First, Iuna lived all your friends and teachers along with stealing most of their quirks. Then your mother, and lastly, I, your precious little daughter, but not before I stole her quirk and let her see you before it was all taken away, said All for One, grinning darkly. Izuku's heavily scarred face looked up, showing his once bright green eyes that were now devoid of any emotion. No, I've come here to kill both of you. Ha ha ha, do you really think you could outlive both me and Sensei? Said Shigaraki, grinning darkly. It's not that I think I can, said Izuku as green lightning arched around him, it's that I will. A massive sonic boom was heard and Izuku's fist slammed into Shigaraki, launching him across the destroyed city, before he spun his body and threw a kick at All for One. Said villain raised his arm and expanded his muscles, and his skin hardened since he was using Kirishima's quirk. The blow sent him flying back, and Izuku then turned around, shooting off toward Shigaraki. Curse you, screamed Shigaraki as his arms suddenly started multiplying, showing hundreds of grotesque hands coming at him. Izuku bent his leg and kicked it, making him disappear in the blink of the eye. He appeared at his side and punched him away, where his body went ragdolled across the ground. He looked up and saw Izuku coming at him, so a sinister grin formed on his face, and he raised his arm and released a massive explosion from his palm. Before he could smile or goad about it, Izuku slammed his knee into his chin, shattering the bone and causing his chin to end up where his eyes were from the force of it. Shigaraki reached out and grabbed Izuku's arm, and it started to decay, but he didn't even flinch as One for All powered up in his right leg to the point his skin was peeling off. No more Tamura, said Izuku as he kicked his body on half before he lifted his foot and stomped his leg down on his head, causing all of Japan to shake. My, that's not very hero-like, Deku. Aren't heroes supposed to arrest villains, not try and kill them? Also, where's your smile? Said All for One, walking towards him. I'm no longer a hero, I'm your executioner, said Izuku, looking up at him. I will bear the burden of killing your and Shigaraki. If it means your evil can never affect this world again. His stump then shot out black tendrils that formed into a skeletal-like arm to replace the one he lost. All for One gritted his teeth before he calmed himself down. He's defeated Izuku multiple times now, so what's one more? F.A. Jean. In a mere instant, Izuku's fist slammed into All for One's gut, making the man puked. Izuku then grabbed him by his throat and choke slammed him to the ground before he reared his fist back to try and cave his skull in. All for One saw this and activated another quirk he stole. His body shot out fire and ice, which made Izuku go flying. I must admit your classmates' quirks are quite something, though there is one quirk I wish I was able to acquire. What was his name? Yes, Aizawa. Such a shame, he had you finish him and burn his body to prevent me from getting it. Izuku closed his fist as his blood started to boil as that memory resurfaced. Midoriya, you need to kill me, said a very weak Aizawa looking at him. No-sensei, I won't lose you too, yelled a 17-year-old Izuku in tears. Izuku, listen, we can't take any chances of all for one or Shigaraki getting my quirk, please, said Aizawa. No, I'll find another way. Me and Eri need you, you're all we have left. Aizawa let a smile form on his face, and he placed his hand on Izuku's shoulder. Izuku, just know I'm very proud of and. You were always like a son to me. If I ever had a kid, I'd hope they'd grow up to be like you. Izuku started crying even harder at hearing this. Please, sensei, don't leave us, don't make me have to kill you. I'm sorry, Izuku, but this is the only way. His eye then turned red, and he forced a knife into Izuku's hand before he started to strangle him. Izuku started gasping for air and tried to summon his quirk, but couldn't, and he looked up at Aizawa's red eyes, seeing tears in them, and he did what had to be done. With a quick stab, Izuku stabbed him through the heart, making him groan in pain as he fell back. I'm proud of you, Izuku, protect Eri. And I'm sorry. Aizawa's body slumped to the floor as vital fluid started to pool under him, and Izuku started to cry harder, letting out animalistic like screams of pain. He knew why he wanted him to do it. It was to make Izuku become stronger and to make sure All for One never got erasure. Izuku gently picked up Aizawa's broken body and placed it on a couple logs before he lit it, letting the fire slowly start to burn his body away. After an entire hour, the fire died down, and there was only a smoldering pile of ash now. The sky then started to downpour. Papa, where's Uncle Aizawa? Said Eri, walking up to him. He's in a better place, Eri, a much better place, said Izuku, letting out a choked sob. Eri walked over to him and hugged him as hard as she could, and Izuku fell to his knees hugging her as he broke down in tears. Izuku glared at him, but then saw something out of the corner of his eye. It was Shigaraki, and he only had one arm, and most of his body was gone and wasn't healing. All that was left of his body was from the upper chest to his head along with his right arm. Master, said Shigaraki, trying to drag himself towards him. It hurts. I can't heal it. Don't worry, Tamura, it will end soon. He then reached over and touched his face. You've served your purpose, now goodbye. Shigaraki started to scream in pain as his master started to rip all of his quirks out of him before he used decay to finish him. How ironic. The one he trusted the most betrayed and killed him with his very own quirk, said All for One, letting out a deep, throaty chuckle at the irony. Izuku didn't say anything and just stared at him with a slight glare added to it. You truly are a monster, and I will end you. He then shot off and used smokescreen to cloud AFO's vision. The villain just chuckled at the futile attempt and activated heat vision, but the next thing he saw were two massive masses heading towards him, so he quickly used all his healing and defense quirks to protect himself. Black Whip slammed into both his arms, overwhelming his defense quirks, but not his healing ones. Izuku then appeared before him and tried to punch him, but AFO created a massive wall of ice, which forces Izuku to jump back to dodge the attack. Izuku then sent OFA into his leg and kicked the massive ice wall, destroying it. Once he destroyed the ice wall, a massive torrent of flames came at him, but Izuku sent a quick Delaware smash to dissipate the fire. Texas Smash, another massive air burst, made AFO get sent back, and before he could react, Izuku managed to punch him with enough force to shatter his ribcage. AFO went to grab Izuku to finish him, but Izuku cranked the power to 120% and blasted him away. You know, I'm quite surprised that such a weak failure like you survived, unlike all your other friends. I mean, you were once quirkless, but now you have a very powerful quirk. Too bad you are too weak to stop me. I mean, you weren't able to save anyone, and now they are all dead. Izuku's blood started to boil, but tried to keep his anger restrained. In that moment of him not paying as much attention, AFO attacked and managed to shatter Izuku's right leg. Now give me OFA. You'll have to kill me first, said Izuku. Both of them then punched each other with enough force to destroy a small island, and it sent massive shockwaves across Japan that the very few survivors felt. United States of Smash, screamed Izuku as he forced his right leg to move and kick AFO away. The force of the kick sent him away, but it also completely destroyed his right leg. He quickly forced Black Whip to cover his leg to make it so he can still walk. I have to SD Eri. Before Izuku in the distance was Eri, who was standing there with a smile. Papa, what are you doing? Eri said. Izuku, as for the first time since she died, life came back to his eyes. Papa, why do you look so hurt? No, you're not, Eri, said Izuku as his anger started to get hard to contain. Of course I am, Papa, said Eri with a smile. No, Eri is dead. I know so, since I buried what was left of her body, said Izuku, as his green lightning started to grow in intensity and hues of black were seen because of his anger. Eri walked towards Izuku and extended her hand. Papa, she didn't get to finish what she was going to say as Izuku punched her in the face, and the illusion faded, revealing AFO. How dare you, said Izuku as the ground under him started to break and shake from the amount of power he was producing. His heart started to beat faster and faster as OFA was powering his body till the point it was started to break down. So you would hit your own child? Boom. He didn't get to finish the sentence as Izuku appeared before him and punched him with so much force the tectonic plate under Japan shifted and caused massive volcanic eruptions around the edges of the plate. I'm going to live you. Izuku disappeared and moved so fast that AFO couldn't even see it until the force of the attack hit him with enough force that it blew half of his lower abdomen off. AFO then felt his skull cave in from Izuku's kick that almost killed him if he didn't use rewind to heal himself before the injury. Kill him, finish him, do it were the only thoughts going through Izuku's head as of this moment. AFO turned and Izuku grabbed the upper part of his mouth and started to try and rip his head off. Air cannon. More of the area was destroyed and Izuku slammed into a massive pile of rubble and stood up while ripping the piece of rebar that was stuck in his stomach like it was nothing. Planet Breaker smash, screamed Izuku as he shot off towards AFO, who upon seeing Izuku come at him lifted his arm and combined multiple quirks together to release a massive explosion to try and stop him. His hopes were crushed when Izuku flew through the explosion, not even fazed about the fact he was covered in burns now. The punch hit AFO, which resulted in a shock wave that tore a chunk of the earth off, sending it to space. AFO's healing quirks were completely overwhelmed to the point he had to use all of the stored-up power of rewind to bring them back. He went to glare at Izuku, but when he saw him, he felt something he hasn't felt in a very long time. Fear. Izuku started to walk towards him, and he felt his heart starting to beat too fast since he was using 700% across his entire body. It was literally tearing him apart from the inside out, but he didn't care. All that mattered anymore was finishing AFO once and for all. What the hell are you? ITLDYUALLFORONE. I am YOUREXECNER, said Izuku as his voice was getting destroyed from the power of OFA coursing through him. Andy, I am JNGTO YENETHISW. ITHONEPUNCH. AFO took a step back in fear. Him, the symbol of darkness, was beyond terrified at what Izuku was becoming. He tried to run away, but he couldn't move his body, and he saw within his mind everyone whose quirk he stole was preventing him from escaping. Izuku's body started to glow from the power that was exploding in growth within him, and since he didn't care for his life no more, he ignored the pain and just continued to increase the power and send it all to his right arm. One for all, Izuku appeared before AFO, and his legs were beyond destroyed from the power he used to move. In this one moment, over 200 years of power from 8 previous users wielding this quirk that was given to Izuku, who increased the power of it to the point nothing could contain the power anymore, and it was released for one single punch final smash. A massive explosion was felt and heard across the entire planet, and it was so powerful it tore the planet in half, with the other side of the planet being blown off, all but destroying it. Inside a massive crater that was over 400 miles wide and 2,000 feet deep was Izuku's broken form that laid on the ground and was slowly dying. His heart was failing, his lungs were destroyed, his body was broke beyond repair and was slowly falling apart like dust from the power that destroyed it. His tired eyes looked up at the fading stars because of the sun rise and watched them as his eyes slowly became faded. Eri, Mom, Ochako, everyone. I'm coming home, said Izuku as he took his final breath before he closed his eyes one last time. What do you know about me? Why are you trying to help me? Yelled Todoroki, glaring at Izuku. What? Izuku looked around beyond shocked. He looked around at the sports festival arena beyond shocked as he was trying to figure out what was going on. Todoroki slammed his hand on the ground, launching a massive wave of ice. Izuku looked at him, and his eyes widened in a mixture of fear and rage as a memory of when AFO stole it before he used it against him and burnt while also freezing him to death. Look at Todoroki's massive attack, Kinmi. Boom. A massive explosion happened and the entire arena was covered in smoke. The wind pressure from Izuku's punch was so powerful that in the stands the safety mechanism activated and seatbelts strapped everyone down. It took a few moments for the smoke to clear, but once it did, it showed Izuku standing still ignoring his broken arm, while Todoroki was blown through the wall. Aizawa was looking at Izuku with slight concern. The look Izuku had on his face was one he's only seen on heroes who've lost everything. He stood up and left. He was going to get to the bottom of this. Winner is Izuku Midoriya. Izuku looked around still confused and started to walk away towards the halls so he could escape and try to figure out what's going on. Young Midoriya, said All Might in confusion. That wasn't like Izuku, and he stood up and started to walk away to go find him. Ochako and a couple other students also stood up and ran off to figure out what was going on and why Izuku suddenly did that. Izuku was walking down the halls of the stadium while also holding his head. He didn't understand what's going on. Did I get sent back in time or something? This makes no sense, said Izuku as he just now registered the pain in his broken arm and looked at it without any care. He said worse happened to him. He went back to walking away. He needed to get away from all of this and figure out what's going on. Deku yelled a voice he never thought he'd hear again. Izuku slowly turned around and saw Ochako, Mina, Momo, Kirishimatsu, Denki, and finally Jiro running up to him. When his eyes saw them, he was brought back to when he last saw them, and how they were all brutally murdered, especially Ochako. Say goodbye to your friend Izuku, said Shigaraki as he placed his hand on Ochako's back and started to decay her before his very eyes. Uraraka yelled Izuku as he shot forward and ducked under Shigaraki's hand and punched him away before he quickly grabbed her, stopping her from hitting the ground. Deku. She wheezed as more and more of her body crumbled away. Stay with me, Ochako. We're gonna be heroes, remember, yelled Izuku as he watched her left hand crumble away and her breathing became more labored. I'm sorry, Deku. Just know that I love you, said Ochako, and with the last of her strength, she gently pressed her lips against his before she crumbled away to nothing. No green lightning arched around him as he turned around and shot forward, punching Shigaraki with enough force to topple the building he was slammed into. Izuku quickly turned around and walked away. He couldn't look at them while remembering all of that. He channeled a small amount of OFA into himself and disappeared down the halls, leaving his friends behind both worried and confused. Wait, Deku, said Ochako loudly, trying to stop him, but it was too late, and he was gone. What happened to him? This isn't like him, said Momo, slightly concerned since she knew he wouldn't normally act like this. I don't know, but he looked so scared and sad when he saw us, said Jiro, frowning in slight concern as well. She may not be best friends with him, but seeing him that sad was hard to stomach. Ochako grabbed her chest as she thought it over and remembered that look he gave them. It held so much pain and sadness in his eyes. I'm going to go help him. Kirishima went to say something, but Sue grabbed his shoulder and shook her head, telling him that she has to be the one to do it. Izuku arrived in the bathroom and took a couple deep breaths as he looked at his reflection. My hair is green again, and I'm not covered in scars. He lifted up his good arm and touched his face in shock. Everything felt so real. Am I in the past? But why and how? Maybe it has to do with One for All. Nana. All he got was silence, but he did feel his quirk rile up for a moment. Izuku turned the water on and splashed it on his face, feeling it. This definitely isn't a dream, said Izuku, feeling the cold water pass over his hand. Oh right, my arm is still broken. He turned off the sink and walked away, heading to Recovery Girl's office to finally heal his broken arm. As he continued to walk down the hall, he couldn't help but remember how All for One used the arena to force worker heroes to fight to the death for his own entertainment. After a couple minutes, he arrived at her office and did his best to ignore the look she was giving him. Midoriya, what was that about, and why didn't you immediately come here? Said Recovery Girl, looking at him. Can you please just heal my arm and take me out of the sports festival? Said Izuku, shocking her. Why do you want to leave? You're in the finals, said Recovery Girl. Please, I just can't fight in here anymore, said Izuku. She looked at him for a long moment before she sighed and agreed to take him out. She then gestured him to sit down so she can heal his broken bones and messed up arm. Midoriya, is something bothering you? She asked with slight concern. His eyes were just so empty and devoid of anything, instead of being bright green gems full of life and happiness. Don't worry, I'm fine. I just need to think everything over, that's all, said Izuku as he looked at his now healed arm, and stood up, walking away, ignoring Recovery Girl yelling for him to come back so she can put it in a sling. He continued his way down the hall when he was stopped by a bandaged hand landing on his shoulder. Midoriya, what's going on? Izuku turned and looked at his teacher, and a memory flashed through his mind of when he was forced to kill him. Nothing, sensei. I'm fine. You are the exact opposite of fine, Midoriya. Your eyes are hollow and lifeless right now instead of being full of life like they usually are. Sensei, if I was to tell you, or anyone, why none of you would believe me, you'd think I'm just lying or I'm on something. Around the corner near the Ochako stopped and listened in, trying to figure out what was wrong with Izuku. She knew this was wrong, but she was really worried about him. Try me, Midoriya, said Aizawa in a calm tone. Izuku looked away from him. That was something that Aizawa noticed. It was like he was scared to look at him, so he just continued to stare at the ground. I can't, so please leave me alone. I already resigned from the sports festival, and I just want to be alone. Are you sure? This could be your only chance till next you to get scouted out by a potential hero. Yes, I'm sure. Aizawa stared at him for a moment longer before he sighed. Fine, but just know if your mood doesn't improve, I'll be asking for answers. Izuku just nodded and walked away, leaving behind an even more worried Ochako and Aizawa, who was concerned since this isn't like Izuku at all. Deku-kun, yelled out Ochako, hoping to stop him, but he was gone. She looked down, feeling horrible since she wasn't able to help her friend and a person who she thinks she might have feelings for. Aizawa-sensei, do you think Deku-kun will be alright? She asked him. I'm not sure. His eyes looked lifeless and as if he lost everything. As Izuku was about to leave the arena, he heard Present Mike speak up. Hello everyone, I'm sorry to tell you this, but because of personal issues, Izuku Midoriya has resigned, so the winner is Katsuki Bakugo. A large explosion was heard, and Katsuki's screaming and swearing could be heard all throughout the stadium. Izuku ignored it and walked towards UA's training grounds. He had to train and get stronger, not play these games. The fate of the future laid on his shoulders, and he wasn't going to fail again. He reached into his pocket for his phone. He had Nezu's number, thankfully, and he sent him a message telling him he's going to be using one of the training grounds until they return to school. 5 days later, Izuku could be seen in training ground C at UA. He's been training for 5 days straight and only stops when his body collapses or he eats and drinks the food Nezu sends him via a robot. He's been staying at the training ground to stay away from everyone. Every time he looks at any of his friends, teachers, or his mom, all he can see is their dead bodies laying on the ground. 8%, he said as green lightning arched around him, and he shot off, bouncing from building to building to try and build up more speed and momentum before he had enough, and he shot down, slamming his fist into a building with enough force it tore the entire structure down. I'm not strong enough, he said as he rubbed the tiredness out of his eyes. I can't fail again. I have to save every Eri. It hit him like a full-powered punch from All Might. Eri was alive, and she's living a life of hell right now because of Overhaul. OFA activated, and the lightning became darker as more and more radiated off of him, making the ground beneath him break. He can still remember everything she said Overhaul did to her. Cutting her, dissecting her, using his quirk to tear her arms off, finishing her to get more biomass, then bringing her back to just redo it all over again. Another crack formed on the ground as Izuku gritted his teeth, and for the first time since he was sent back in time, his eyes filled with life, except it was nothing but pure rage. Darn it, he started to destroy everything in his path. God damn it, I'm not strong enough. I can't even save her because of how weak I am. He started punching a building near him, and each punch destroyed the part that was hit every single time, and sometimes the wall behind it, or even multiple walls as his anger grew. All the happy memories of her came flooding back, and his rage just kept boiling over. The more and more he thought about her getting hurt by that sick man. God damn it, Izuku threw a punch, which broke his arm, and it destroyed over 5 blocks of the training ground in his anger. He started to take deep, slow breaths to try and calm himself down. I have to get stronger. I promise Eri I'll come and save once I am strong enough to do so. Izuku then looked at his broken arm and sighed. He now has to go to Recovery Girl to get it healed, which he really didn't want to, but he had no choice. After a quick walk, he arrived at her office and entered the room. I need you to heal my arm so I can get back to training. Sonny, what's been going on with you? Your mom has been calling us for the past 5 days asking how you are since you refused to go home, said Recovery as she checked his arm. I can't face my mom, or anyone for that matter, so just finish healing my arm so I can get back to training. I have to get stronger, said Izuku. I'll heal you, but you were requested to Nezu's office. Aizawa and All Might are very worried about you, but Nezu has stopped them from interfering with you, said Recovery Girl. He simply sighed and nodded his head before he looked at his now healed arm and walked off to Nezu's office to see what he wanted. When he entered it, he saw a fully healed Aizawa, All Might in his buff form, Nezu, and Hound Dog. You called for me, Nezu? Said Izuku, walking towards him before he sat down. Yes, I did, Midoriya. Aizawa and All Might here have been worried, and I believe you've spent enough time venting, and now you can tell them what's going and how you got here, said Nezu. Wait, what do you mean how I got here? Said Izuku, confused and slightly concerned. Midoriya, I'm aware of what's been bothering you and why you're like this, but it's not my place to tell them, so I want you to tell them why you're like this and why you look so cold now, said Nezu. Young Midoriya, please tell us what's wrong, said All Might, looking at his successor with concern in his eyes. Even if I was to tell you, none of you would believe me, and you would all simply think I'm going crazy. He simply said while looking down and playing with his hands. You telling them will do that, but if you show them, then that'd be a different story, said Nezu with a smile. What do you mean? And how do you really know what I went through? Yes, I do, but like I said, it isn't my place to say since it's your business to tell and to show them. Well, I'll let my friend show them, said Nezu. Just then the door opened and a 7-foot man with the head of an octopus but the body of a man walked in. He wore a black armored costume. Hello, I am Mindwalker, and my quirk Mind Flayer allows me to enter people's minds and make them work for me, or I can read their thoughts and show them to others. Before Mindwalker shows you everything, just know what you will all see will be very unpleasant, said Nezu before he took a sip of tea. The hero walked up to Izuku and looked at the boy, who simply nodded his head, showing he'll allow it. He reached down and placed his hand on his head and looked through all his memories, but unaware that certain ones were locked up to prevent him from learning about certain things. After 5 whole minutes, Mindwalker took a step back in shock. This boy before him lived a life of nothing but pure hell. He watched as all of his friends, family, and teachers died before his eyes, and the person he was fighting took their quirks and used them against him. Then later on he had to kill Aizawa to prevent said villain from stealing his quirk. Then only a year later Izuku was forced to watch as his daughter was killed before his very eyes, leaving nothing but a pile of gore where she was. Then finally Izuku's final battle, when he stopped caring about everything except for defeating that monster, and to defeat him he died in the process. He ran over to a trash can and started puking from everything he saw. No human, let alone a teenager, should have even gone through a fraction of that, you poor child, said Mindwalker. He didn't even know how this kid was even sane, let alone not brain dead from all the trauma he went through. I'm not a child. Mentally at least, also before you show them. Hound Dog, I'm fine, and I don't need therapy, said Izuku, looking at the hero/psychologist. I'll be the judge of that, he simply said. You 3 might want to brace yourselves, said Mindwalker as he moved the tentacles on his face that looked like beard over and placed one on each of the heroes. Not even 5 minutes later, Hound Dog himself ran to the trash can, while All Might slumped back in the chair, almost releasing his form from shock and horror. Lastly was Aizawa, who actually started to cry as he held his face with his hands. That's the future if we let Shigaraki, Overhaul, and him live, that's why. To prevent that, I'm going to kill them, said Izuku. But Midoriya, heroes, shut your mouth, All Might said, All Might, before Izuku snapped and screamed at him. It's because we let those 3 pieces of human garbage live that all of that happened, you day. We shouldn't finish them, but looked what happens. I was the one who had to witness it all. I was the one who had to bury what was left of everyone's bodies. I was the one who had to bear the burden. Do you know what it's like to watch everyone you care for die and know it only happened because we let them live? Every time I fought him, I was forced to fight my friend's quirks. Not only that, but he used mental quirks to mess with me and break me. All Might shrank back in the chair as he looked at his successor, the boy with so much happiness and hope. He was now an empty husk because of all the pain and suffering he went through, all because he himself didn't kill, all for one. I don't care if the entire world views me as the trash of the earth. Those 3 have to die, All Might, or else hundreds of millions will be lost. Izuku was covered in green lightning as he anger burned, but he was eventually able to calm it down to a manageable level. I have to finish them. It's the only way to ensure that future never happens. All Might, tell me, are you going to let them live after everything you just saw? All Might looked down. He knew killing was wrong, and he absolutely hated doing it, but like his master said, sometimes killing someone is a necessary evil to protect the innocent. Izuku stood up and started to walk away. I'll be training if you need me. He then walked out the door and left. That boy, said Hound Dog, lifting his head from the trash. I don't know how he's even still going. Because he wants to stop that future from happening. He's on a path of vengeance, and sadly for him, he's broken to the point even the ones he cares for can't really help him, because it'll only hurt him more, said Nezu. So what do you we? I'm not letting him deal with all of this on his own, said Aizawa. It will take time for him to heal from these wounds, but even then they will never fully heal. What he needs is to clear his mind, and to have those he cares for to trying to help him, because eventually they will break through and help him, said Nezu. Also, everything you saw and heard must never leave this room for obvious reasons. The heroes nodded but still couldn't fully stomach the fact that Izuku went through that hell and came back alive physically. But mentally, he was almost broken behind repair, and it will take a miracle and lots of help from people who care for him and love him. Izuku was back at the training grounds, and he was doing one-armed push-ups, giving his other arm was broken. He's been doing them for the last hour, and it felt as if his arm was about to fall off from how tired the muscles are. I have to get stronger. He forced his body to do another push-up before his arm finally gave from strain and lactic acid build-up. What? Why am I so weak? A memory flashed through his mind of his 18th birthday, and even though the world was a living hell, Eri made him a small drawing and even tried to make his favorite meal. It was burned and had next to no seasoning, but he didn't care. He ate it regardless because it meant more to him than the flavor. A small smile crossed his face, but just as fast as it was there, it was gone. As another memory came the day she died. Izuku gritted his teeth to stop himself from crying, and he forced his body up off the ground, and he began running, ignoring his already burning lungs along with the previous users telling him to stop. I can't stop. All for One is alive alone with that other monster. I don't care what happens to my body, just as long as it means I can stop those monsters, including the Hero Safety Commission, thought Izuku. He continued to train and wasn't planning to stop until he was strong enough to save Eri. I have to do this alone, because I relied on my friends. They all died. I don't care if they end up hating me. I will save them all. Meanwhile, school was just about to start, and everyone was in class except Ochako, since she was waiting for Izuku to show up. She left for school earlier than normal, hoping to find him, but she saw him nowhere. She continued to stand outside even after the bell rang, and she started to get worried since he wasn't here, and this was unlike him. Uraraka, what are you doing here? Said Aizawa, walking towards her. Oh, sorry, sensei, I was waiting for Deku-kun, so I can ask him if he was okay. I called and texted him over the break, and he never responded, said Ochako. Aizawa sighed in understanding from her point of view. She doesn't know the literal hell Izuku went through. Don't worry, Uraraka. I'll try and talk to him later. He's currently dealing with some personal problems. Now get in class, and I'll let you not being in it pass this time. Ochako nodded her head and went inside, and once the door closed behind her, Aizawa grabbed his head as tears started to stream down his cheeks. How can you deal with this? He said as he leaned against the wall and slid down till he was sitting. Through the entire week, he could barely get any sleep, and any time he closed his eyes, all he saw was his entire class dead before him and how they died. It also included how Inko died, and how that little girl named Eri died. The way she died made him sick to his stomach. Even after being a hero since he himself went to UA, nothing could have prepared him for that gruesome sight. It took Aizawa a couple minutes, but he regained his composure and wiped the tears away and stood up. Probno. Midoriya, you're truly one of a kind, and you deserve to be a hero more than anyone in this school or outside of it. Aizawa walked into class and walked to his desk and was about to begin class when Katsuki spoke up. Oh, where the F is Deku? He snarled. Out. He's dealing with personal problems, said Aizawa in a cold tone. PSSH, that worthless Deku doesn't have any problems, he's J-. Crack. The class looked up at Aizawa and saw that his fist busted a huge hole in his desk, and then he looked up at Katsuki. He didn't have his quirk active, but the look he gave him was more terrifying. Bakugo. You call him Deku one more time, and I'll make sure not even Recovery Girl can tell what part of your body belongs where, said Aizawa dangerously. Katsuki made the smart decision and nodded his head, but he did clench his fists. Great, now the teach is defending Deku. First the loser thinks he's better than me, and now he's getting the staff to go against me. Aizawa took a calming breath and decided to get this over with so he can try and talk to Izuku. You all did well in the sports festival, some did better. Because of that, most of you got invites to intern under heroes. Those that didn't, we have a list of heroes who have agreed to take any of you, and said Aizawa. Also, to be heroes, you will all need hero names. And I will be in charge of those since Eraser right here isn't that good at it, and would simply let you choose whatever you want, said Midnight walking into class. Aizawa just grunted and left the class, heading to the training grounds to talk to Izuku. Izuku was standing before a massive 20 by 20 by 20 block of concrete that Cementos made. He walked up to it and took a deep breath of air and placed his hand against it. The ground under his feet cracked, and he sent all the force to his hand, and it completely shattered the concrete without creating a shockwave. Still not good enough. All for One would just shrug it off, said Izuku before he walked over to another slab of concrete that was 10 by 10, and it was 4 inches thick. He used both his arms to slowly lift up the 4,400-pound slab. After a couple moments, he slowly lifted it off the ground and moved his body under it, and completely lifted it off the ground and over his head. It took him a moment to get his balance, but once he did, he slowly started to walk forward, ignoring the pain in his entire body from the weight, and how he was only allowing himself to use 7%. Midoriya, put that down, said Aizawa, watching him. No, he said as he continued to walk forward, sweating profusely from the strain on his body. Midoriya, you're going to end up unalving yourself if you keep this up. I understand. He didn't finish what he was saying as Izuku threw the concrete slab away and glared at him with murder in his eyes. Understand? You think you understand what type of hell I went through? I had to watch everyone I care for die before my own eyes. My own mother was decayed before me. All my friends died protecting me because they knew I was the only person who could stop that monster. Not only that, but some of them weren't even killed. I found Yaoyorozu strapped to a machine and being forced to create weapons and other types of things for that sick monster for 2 entire years straight. When I finally saved her, she wasn't even strong enough to live, and she died in my arms. Kirishima sacrificed himself to save Ishido, and it was for nothing. The Nomu found her and beat her and tore her body to pieces. They raised them high into the air as if they were trophies. Kaken Shigaraki broke him. He simply broke him mentally, and physically he was broken, and then he had his quirk stolen along with my other classmates. Uraraka, she was decayed before me, and the last thing she told me was that she loved me. Then Eri Izuku was crying through all of this, but when he got to his adoptive daughter, it hurt even more. That sick monster found her on my birthday, and he ripped her quirk from her body, and then he crushed her skull before me. Then, as a sick joke, he threw her body at me and laughed, saying I couldn't even protect my own daughter. Aizawa flinched. He looked up and saw Izuku empty, cold eyes. You saw what I went through. But you can never truly understand the hell I went through. Everyone I knew and loved I had to bury in unmarked graves because he left nothing of their bodies afterwards. To top it all off, he stole most of their quirks and used them against me. So I had to not only fight him, but I had to fight my class. So tell me, Aizawa, do you understand what type of hell I've been through? Aizawa said nothing and just looked down. He didn't. He couldn't even begin to fully grasp the hell Izuku went through, even with the memories. Don't ever pretend to understand and leave me alone. I have to train to make myself stronger. I have to finish these monsters so that they don't hurt anyone else ever again, said Izuku before he left. I'm sorry, was all that Aizawa said. Meanwhile, in his own office, All Might was still trying to process the literal hell he put his successor went through. It all happened because even in the end I refused to finish him and the government refused to dispose him as well, he said. He brought his hands from his face and looked at the small picture he had on his desk of him and Izuku that was taken after he got into UA. Young Midoriya, I'm so sorry you went through all of this. His eyes then hardened with determination as he stood up. I promise you this time I won't fail you, young man. He went to leave his office when he heard someone knock on his door. Come in. A moment later, Inko walked in. Her hair was a mess, and she had large bags under her eyes along with tear stains on her cheeks. Mr. Yagi. Oh, Mrs. Midoriya, how can I help you? Said All Might curiously. I want to know why I haven't seen my son in over a week and why he refuses to answer any of my calls or texts, said Inko with anger and frustration in her tone. I'm sorry, Mrs. Midoriya, I can't full answer that. Young Midoriya is dealing with something, and he's refusing to let anyone near him or help him. That's no excuse why he won't answer me. I'm his mother, and I want my baby back home, yelled Inko as her parental instincts were going haywire from worry and exhaustion. I can try and call him here, but I can't promise anything. The only reason he's still here is because Principal Nezu says it's the only thing keeping him sane, said All Might. That confused Inko, but before she could say anything, All Might grabbed his phone and tried to call Izuku. It rang a couple times, and surprisingly he picked up. What? All Might couldn't say anything as the phone was ripped from his hand by Inko. Izuku, I want you here right this very moment. We are going home, and we are going to have a very long talk, said Inko. She hated getting angry at Izuku, but giving the last week she needed to be. He was silent for a moment before he responded. No. Inko actually took a step back at that. His tone was cold and dead that it actually scared her. This wasn't her baby at all. He was so cold and empty. What do you mean no? I'm your MO dash. I know you're my mom. But no, I can't come home not until they are dealt with. Anyways, goodbye, Mom. I need to get back to training. And just like that, he hung up the phone. Inko stood there for a moment, completely frozen, trying to figure out what could have made her baby act like this. Mr. Yagi, what happened to my baby boy, said Inko in a heartbroken tone, since he's never sounded like this or acted this way before. I can't say, it's up to young Midoriya to say, since it's his burden to share. Mrs. Midoriya, I know you don't like what I'm about to say, but I think it'll be best to let him keep doing what he's doing, said All Might. What, but why? My little boy is hurt emotionally, obviously, and I need to help him. It's helping him heal, said a new voice. They both looked over and saw Nezu sitting on the spare seat and had a cup of tea in his paws. As messed up as it is, it's the only thing keeping him remotely grounded to earth. But, Mrs. Midoriya, I understand that you're worried and you have every right to be, but in this very moment you have to trust me. He needs to be alone. If you were to rush things, it will bring more harm than good, said Nezu. Inko looked down and let a couple more tears roll down her cheeks before she nodded okay. But once this is over, I want him straight home. No ifs, ands, or buts. Nezu nodded his head at that. Meanwhile, back at the city, Izuku just got done with his training, and a robot came holding a tray with some food and water for him. He grabbed it and began eating away, completely unaware of someone walking towards him. Izuku was eating his lunch and thinking about the order he put in for May to make him for his new costume. He then heard stomping, and he turned around to see who it was. Before he could fully turn around, he was punched across the face with a crack. After flying a couple feet from the force of the punch, he turned around and looked at who punched him, and it was none other than Katsuki. Deku, what the hell is this, huh? You're skipping school, and you leave the sports festival? Do you really think you're that much better? Screamed Katsuki. Izuku looked at him with a cold, unreadable expression and wiped his mouth before standing up. I don't have time to deal with you, Kaken. Now leave me alone. I need to get back to training. Katsuki heard this, and his blood was boiling. Who does this little brat think he is? He marched over and grabbed him. I'm not done talking to you, Deku, so don't ignore me. Izuku ripped his hand off him. Well, I don't have the patience to deal with your superiority and inferiority complex, so leave me alone, he said with a bite in his tone, showing he was being serious. A loud explosion was heard, and Izuku barely managed to bring his arms up to block the punch from Katsuki, who just snapped in anger from what Izuku just said. You, Deku, he screamed as he then swung his leg out trying to kick him. Izuku blocked the attack again and jumped back to gain some distance from him. But before he could say or do anything, Katsuki was on him again, releasing more explosions trying to hit him. Kaken, stop, yelled Izuku as he dodged another attack. And oh, you're always looking down on me just because you think you're better than me. Now you think you don't even need to go to school. Not only that, but now the worthless teachers are taking your side, yelled Katsuki. Why can't you just get out of my life and do everyone a favor and die? Izuku gritted his teeth at that and continued to block along with dodging the attacks. I have my own problems, and I don't look down on you, so just leave me alone. There you go again, looking down on me. Now just sit still and let me kill you. An image ran through Izuku's head of Shigaraki, who said something very similar before he killed Inko. Katsuki was about to release another explosion, but Izuku moved faster and slammed his fist right into his gut, making him cough up saliva. I'm tired of you, snarled Izuku as his anger was growing more and more because of Katsuki's attitude and flashes of the past going through his head. He didn't get to say anything as Izuku punched him in the face, then kneed him painfully in his chest before he did a spin kick, which hit him hard and sent him flying. Izuku increased the power output to 9% and felt his bones and muscles groan and feel extremely strained, given he isn't used to this level of power. He only recently managed to get up 7%, so jumping up 2% and not letting his body rest at all has put a lot of strain on him. Detroit Smash, yelled Izuku, punching the air, and a massive air blast was sent out, which Katsuki barely dodged. So you're finally bleh. Izuku kicked him hard, and then grabbed him by his shirt collar and slammed him into the ground. I'm sick and tired of you, Bakugo, he screamed and reared his arm back to punch him, but Katsuki moved his head in time just to watch Izuku's fist destroy the concrete under them, and his arm was up to his elbow. An explosion was released on Izuku's chest, blasting him away, but he didn't even flinch and tried to will Black Whip to life, but didn't feel it. He then remembered that he hasn't gotten his control good enough yet to access it. This meant he'll have to stick with his old strategy, since he only has OFA. You're always complaining that I'm in your way and looking down on you, and yet whenever I try to leave you alone, you come and seek me out. The world doesn't revolve around you, screamed Izuku in anger, as his repressed emotions were exploding and he was having a very hard time reining them in. Katsuki snarled, that's because you never got out of my life. You followed me around like some lost dogs, so SAT still and die. Both of them charged and Izuku dropped down to the ground and used his hands to twist his body up, where he gave a kick which smashed into Katsuki's chin with a sickening crack. But the attack wasn't done, and Izuku used OFA to push off the ground, flying next to him, where he axe kicked him to the ground, which broke the concrete. Always talking about death and dying, have you ever thought of the consequences about talking about that, yelled Izuku, landing on the ground, watching him slowly stand up. Katsuki looked up at Izuku's eyes and gritted his teeth. He's still looking down on me. He slowly stood up on shaky legs. Why should I give care? Those extras deserve to be in the ground. Boom. Izuku used 20% in an instant, and it tore some of the muscles in his legs and right arm from the strain, along with cracking the bones as well. How dare you? With crimson shot foggy eyes, Katsuki tried to get up, but was then pinned down to the ground by Izuku, who then started to beat his face in. Do you even know the pain people go through when someone dies? Wait, of course you don't. You only care about yourself, screamed Izuku, as his fist kept slamming into Katsuki's face. You are nothing more than a bully. You look down on everyone and actively bully and belittle them for just trying. I had to endure you for over 10 years, but no more, Bakugo. Izuku's fist was covered in crimson fluid from constantly punching Katsuki in the face. Every strike broke the concrete under them and made Katsuki's body jump a little, and below them was a growing puddle of vital fluid. Do you know what it's like to bury everyone you care for and love? A stronger punch than before slammed down and a couple teeth came out. Do you know how it feels having to watch them die before your eyes? The city block then shook from the punch. Do you know what it feels like to watch your own daughter die before your own eyes, and you can't even bury her? Izuku was now screaming in both pain and rage as tears streamed down his face, and both of his hands were coated in crimson fluid along with his pants and shirt and face. You're nothing more than a villain. He swung his arm back to try and punch him, but someone grabbed his hand. That's enough, young Midoriya. Without even thinking, Izuku turned around and punched All Might in the face with enough force that the hero's jaw cracked and Izuku's hand finally broke. He was about to punch him again when he finally realized who it was he just punched. All Might. He just nodded his head, and next to him medical bots came to pick Katsuki up. Izuku's vision fully cleared, and he can see everything again and not in a red haze. He looked over to Katsuki, and his eyes widened in horror. His face was barely recognizable. His arm was bent at a weird angle, and he had some deep cuts along with bruising all up and down his body. His breathing was also labored, and under him was a growing pool of vital fluid. The medical bots picked him up and rushed him off to Recovery Girl to heal him. All Might looked at Izuku and saw a multitude of emotions running across his face: anger, sadness, pain, regret, fear, and relief. He looked hurt, but at the same time it seemed as if a weight has also been lifted off his shoulders from this fight. Young Midoriya, what happened? He said. Izuku looked at his soaked hands and forced down all his emotions he was feeling with ease. He grew too used to doing this. It was one of the very few things he could do to survive fighting All for One and Shigaraki with everything they did. Bakugo came and aggravated me. He was being himself and continued to try and get me angry. He kept telling me to die and mentioned that others should as well, said Izuku in a very cold tone. All Might was shocked that Izuku would call him Bakugo instead of his usual nickname. He was also angry at Bakugo for his use of language, since talking about death or dying wasn't something most people like to talk about. I don't regret what I did, but I wish I didn't have to be as brutal with him as I was, but sadly it might have been the only way to get him to change. He's the most stubborn person I've ever met, and the only way to get him to see anything or change is to literally beat it into him, said Izuku. But that doesn't matter. I need to get healed, then see if my gear is ready. Izuku then turned and walked away, leaving All Might, who tried to reach out to him but couldn't. He didn't know how to describe it, but he felt if he did anything then Izuku would push him away even more. Midoriya, he thought, watching Izuku leave. Master, what do I do? A couple of days passed after that, and everyone came back to school from over the weekend. But when they came back to class, they saw that Katsuki was covered in bandages and was uncomfortably quiet. He just kept looking at his desk with an unreadable expression. For Ochako, she looked at him but wondered what happened. Then her eyes went to the empty desk that was Izuku's and had a sad expression. She wanted to help him, but she didn't know what to do since he was pushing everyone away. Just then they heard screaming coming from the halls, and it sounded like Aizawa. You are not leaving this school, Midoriya. Everyone walked out class and looked down the hall, seeing Aizawa glaring at Izuku, who was wearing a new costume. The new suit is a near-complete overhaul of Costume Gamma. A new addition to this suit is the mid-gauntlet compression support items, metal bands that cover his entire forearm. The mid-gauntlets were designed to reinforce his whole body, allowing him to go past his allowable limit of 9%, and he can now use 45% of One for All. The final new addition is a yellow cape, which he wears like a shawl around his shoulders. The full effect gave him a more menacing aura. Another thing on him was a large yellow backpack that was filled to the brim with supplies like food, medical equipment, and some water. He also had his hood pulled back and his mouth guard was hidden under his shawl. I have to leave, Mr. Aizawa. I already got Nezu's permission, so I have to leave in order to do my mission, said Izuku in a cold tone with lifeless eyes. You're a student of UA, and you're supposed to be here, not out in the world fighting villains, snapped Aizawa. I already have permission, so this is goodbye, Mr. Aizawa. Take good care of this class and make them great heroes. I'll be the advanced guard and take on the League and Yakuza along with Meta Liberation Army, while everyone else gets stronger, said Izuku. He looked towards his class for a brief moment before turning and walking away, heading to the stairs so he can leave UA. As he walked, he didn't get very far before he felt someone grab his hand and was holding it very tightly. He slowly turned around and was looking at Ochako, who had a hurt expression on her face. Deku-kun, why are you leaving? Why have you been ignoring all of us? This doesn't make any sense. Please tell us. You're our friend, said Ochako. Izuku looked at her for a moment before he closed his eyes. I'm sorry, Uraraka, but I have to leave. Also, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. Just work on getting stronger and forget about me. Ochako went to say something, but he took his hand from hers and walked away, leaving her hurt. She felt her chest tighten up in pain, and before she realized it, she was crying, seeing him leave and push herself and everyone away. Aizawa-sensei, what's going on? Why is Midoriya bro leaving? Said Kirishima, looking at him. He's doing it to protect you all. Now get to class, he said, leaving it at that. On a tall skyscraper overlooking the city, a figure could be seen standing on the ledge of the building. His yellow cape was flowing in the wind as he looked around and spotted a cloud of smoke. Someone is in danger, he said, and pulled his hood up and put his mask on. He then jumped off the building and used 5% to kick the air and shoot off, heading in that direction of the smoke. He landed on another building and rolled before shooting off into a sprint, and then placed his foot on the ledge, using his momentum along with OFA to gain even more speed and rocket across the city to the smoke. When he did arrive, he saw that a bunch of police officers were fighting a villain with a fire quirk who was shooting off fireballs at the cops. "Ha, you can't beat me, now give me Endeavor, so I can show him what true fire feels like," yelled the villain, shooting off another fireball, which hit a cop and lit her entire body on fire, making her scream in pain as the others tried to put it out. Izuku narrowed his eyes and decided to take care of this villain. Off to the side with the cops were a couple of news agents who were recording the fight and commenting on it. As you can see here, a villain has begun attacking the police, demanding that the hero Endeavor appear to fight him. Sadly, no heroes are present in the area, and the police are doing their best to hold him off until they do arrive, said the news reporter before she saw the female officer get hit. An officer was just hit by a fireball, and the others are now trying to put the flames out. She was about to comment more when a green figure landed on the ground a couple feet away from the villain and got his attention. Who the foo? Izuku didn't waste any time and shot forward and punched him in the gut, and followed through by smashing him into the building, cracking the wall with the force. The villain was shocked and was about to slump to the ground when the green figure brutally slammed his knee into his gut, lifting his body up, but was then met by a hammer strike to the back, which slammed him to the ground unconscious. Izuku looked at the villain before looking at the cops he's beaten. Now arrest him, he said before shooting off into the city to look for more villains to fight. When he left, everyone was confused since they had no idea who he was, and the cops were angry since he used excessive force on a villain. For Izuku, this continued for the rest of the day. He would run around the city or neighboring cities and look for villains and take them out before he'd run off to look for more. It was now very late at night, well past 1 in the morning, and he finally decided to get some sleep. He found a rundown apartment which was thankfully abandoned, so he found a room at the top and called it his home for the night. After a quick meal, he sat down on the floor against the wall and looked out the window at the full moon with broken eyes. His vision started to get cloudy before his eyes closed, but he opened them and he looked over and saw Eri playing with her toys. "Papa, look at this toy. His name is Mr. Sleepy," she said with a large smile on her face. "Oh, really?" he said, "and why is he named that?" "Because he always sleeps like you do and Uncle Aizawa, when you two come home," she said with a smile. Izuku smiled and closed his eyes. "Papa, can I ask you a question?" "Yes, you can, Snowball. Why didn't you save me?" Izuku was confused before he turned and his eyes widened in horror. He was now back on the battlefield, and what was left of Eri's body and head was looking at him. "Why didn't you save me, Papa? You said you'd always protect me." Izuku started to panic and he closed his eyes. "I tried, I wasn't fast enough." "Why didn't you save me, Papa? I thought you loved me," said Eri. Then another voice was heard, and it was from Inko. "You were supposed to be a hero, Izuku. You were supposed to protect us," she said as her body decayed from Shigaraki's quirk. Izuku was in the fetal position, sobbing, and he looked up and saw All for One standing before him with a sickening grin on his face as his red eyes gleamed. "This is what happens when you heroes grow families. They all die, and you're gonna watch them die again, Izuku Midoriya." Izuku woke up screaming in the apartment and looked around in absolute fear. His body was caked in cold sweat, and he was having problems controlling his breathing. He looked at his phone and realized he only had 2 hours of sleep. "It was a dream," he said quietly as he held his head, but the visions were still clear in his imagination. "I need to get back to patrolling." With that, he packed up his gear and ran out to do some night patrols to hopefully clear his mind of his nightmare. 1 week later. "Smash!" yelled Izuku, slamming his fist into a villain, breaking multiple ribs and sending him flying through a wall, where he soon rolled on the ground before coming to a stop, unconscious on the ground. He then turned and blocked a strike from a villain before he sent his knee right into his gut with enough force that it made him puke before Izuku slammed his elbow into the back of his head, knocking him out. "You damn hero!" screamed another member as he managed to land a wind blast on Izuku, which he countered at the last second with a Detroit smash before it could do any real damage to him. Izuku then moved in and grabbed his arm before twisting it backwards and pinning his head to the ground so hard he cracked his cheek. "You're going to tell me where your human trafficking operation is, or else," said Izuku darkly. "Ha ha ha, you don't scare me. All you heroes do is bruise," he said cockily. "Watch. You'll beat me up, then I'll be put in jail, and some of my buds will get me out by either paying the right people or busting me out. It doesn't matter what you heroes do. Your system lets us get away with it in the end." He didn't get a response before he felt unbelievable pain in his shoulder as Izuku snapped the bone out of the socket, breaking with a painful twist. He let out an animalistic scream in pain from his arm being broken, but then he felt his other arm get grabbed and pulled in the same position before the left one broken. "You're right. Most heroes are like that, but I'm not. Now tell me where it is, or you'll be eating out of straw until you're old and gray," said Izuku, slowly applying pressure to the arm. I'm not a hero. I'm someone who's going to put a stop to monsters like you. The villain groaned in pain as he felt his arm slowly being bent to the point it was going to snap, like the other. He felt it crack, and he finally caved. Okay, I'll tell you, just please stop. The pressure was released slightly, and it wasn't as painful now, but it still hurt like a beach talk. In a warehouse far outside on the west side of the city, it's near the forest, and about a couple 100 yards away from the main road, that's all I know, said the villain. Very well, have a nice fall, said Izuku before he threw him out the window, letting him fall 2 stories and painfully land on the ground with multiple broken bones. Izuku turned to the broken window and walked towards it, seeing the city that was illuminated by all the lights, even though it was nighttime. He crouched down and green lightning arched around his body before he shot off into the sky, heading in the direction that man told him. As he jumped, he saw that police arrived, probably because of all the screaming from the villains he beat up, drawing attention of passersby. He landed on a building, then jumped again, and as he flew, he tried to reach out with Black Whip, but nothing happened as he expected. I still don't have enough control, he muttered to himself. As he continued to race from roof to roof, his mind slowly wandered, and a picture of Eri popped up in his head of the time she made him a cake on his birthday during the first year of the war against the League. Ochako, Mina, and Toru along with Tsu helped her make it since Eri said she wanted to make her papa happy on his birthday. He quickly shook his head to clear his mind of those thoughts before his eyes hardened. I have to get stronger faster. Once I unlock Black Whip, I'll be able to save her. Since then, I won't need her to help me this time. I can already use 45% thanks to these gauntlets, but if they break, then I'll be worthless, he thought to himself. After 20 minutes of running from rooftop to rooftop, he finally reached the outskirts of the city, and he searched around for a little bit before he came upon the warehouse he was looking for. The gang that controlled it performed human trafficking. Not only that, but they sold people and kids with powerful quirks to someone simply known as the Doctor. Izuku took a deep breath of oxygen to calm himself down before he began to scout the area out to get an idea of what he was up against. He had the element of surprise, and he wasn't going to waste it, especially if it means saving the lives inside the building. Quickly jumping up on the roof of the building and heading to the skylight, he peeked down and saw hundreds of cages that were filled to the brim with people of every age. In the back of the room looked to be an operating table with the corpse of a kid laying on it. Anger welled up in him that took him a moment to regain control over. If he let his rage take over, he might hurt the people locked up. With that, and one more scan of the room, he had a plan. Quietly as possible, he opened the skylight and landed on one of the support beams that held the roof up before looking around to make sure no one spotted him. Luckily, no one did, thanks to someone having loud music playing in the background, which gave him another advantage that Aizawa taught him. He can be slightly more reckless since the music will help drown out the sound of him taking out the thugs. Slowly and quietly, he began knocking them out one by one, with strangleholds or smashing their heads into a wall or a support beam to knock them out. It only took him a minute, and he had over half of the thugs knocked out and was making his way to where he saw the operating table and offices. But before he could get any closer, the doors to the office opened up and a man walked out that Izuku faintly recognized. He was a tall man with shark-like teeth and was covered in tattoos of a woman in lots of different outfits. He also wore beige-colored pants and an open shirt that looked like scales. On his face, he wore a simple black eye mask. The man was one of the assassins that All for One sent after him in the future that he easily took out. The man was notorious for human trafficking, and the worst part was that he was extremely zealous about it since he viewed All for One as a god, and he was doing God's work by kidnapping children and other people with strong quirks. What's taking y'all so long? The doc wanted this shipment hours ago, he said while lighting up a cigarette with his quirk turning on, showing a flame from his fingertip. Sorry, boss. We were taking a break, but we'll get right back to work, said one of them. Izuku saw that the remaining thugs were all in one area, so he had to strike before they could spread out and find the bodies. Green and black lightning arched around his body as he prepared to jump them. The black lightning was something that shocked and confused him until he remembered that OFA is partially based off his emotions and giving everything he's been through and Bus' current state. The black bolts of electricity show the darkness in him. Before the villains even knew what was happening, a figure slammed into one of them, smashing his head straight into the ground. He then spun his body before using his arms to lift himself up and slammed the metal sole of his shoe straight into another villain's chin, with a sickening crack breaking his jaw. Izuku then used the momentum on his kick and shoved his body up in the air before he did 2 quick Delaware smashes, sending the others away before he landed on the ground. Not even waiting a second, the moment his feet touched the ground, Izuku shot off and punched another villain before bending his body down to dodge a blade from another one. As he ducked, he spun his body and, using his right foot, it connected to the head of the assailant, and it made a sickening crack as he went flying before landing on the ground, twitching from the force sent to his brain. A flam whip came from the corner of Izuku's eye and quickly blitzed to the side, only getting nicked by the flames. Once he had some distance, he quickly raised his arm and shot out a Montana smash. The air blast was extremely small, no? Bigger than a baseball, but once it hit its target, it exploded and sent him through the office of the building. Just then a baseball bat smashed into his back, and he bit his lip in pain, but overall, ignored it S&D, he quickly turned around and punched the villain in the stomach with enough force to knock him out immediately. Izuku looked over at the last 3 villains, with one of them being the man he was after. "Who are you?" he snarled while clenching his shark-like teeth in anger as a flame whip appeared in his hand. "Someone who's gonna put a stop to your master," said Izuku darkly. How dare you? He's a god among men, and you think you can finish him?" he screamed in rage. "It's not that I think. It's that I know I will finish him," said Izuku. He's never felt so angry before in his life. This man before him was insulting his god, a man who chose him to carry out this important task of giving the doctor powerful quirks. "I need you to gather me children or other people with powerful quirks for me. You are the only one I can trust with this important task," said All for One with a small grin on his face. The flame whip lashed out to Izuku, who narrowly dodged the strike before he jumped away, landing on an empty cage and then gripping it tightly with his hand, digging into the metal. He flipped forward and hurled the cage out, but it was easily cut in half by the flame whip, as if it were a hot knife through butter. Izuku was about to jump again when a different villain raised his arm and his fingers turned into barrels for his gun quirk. Izuku couldn't move because if he did, then the hostages behind him would get hit. Because of that, he couldn't move and had to lift his arms up to let the gauntlets hopefully absorb most of the punishment. They thankfully did, but some bullets still hit home and hit his legs, stomach, and one grazed his head. The pain was excruciating, but he pushed through it with gritted teeth and shot forward, dodging more bullets, and the flame with a mixture of ease and pain from the wounds he has. Once close enough, he dropped his body to the ground to dodge a slash from the whip before placing his hands on the ground, and swung his body up and did a double uppercut with both his feet, knocking out the guards. Izuku turned and was met with white-hot flames wrapping around him and beginning to burn his body badly. Through sheer gritted teeth and rage, he sent OFA to his legs and shot forward again before he slammed his forehead against it. "Got you, monster," he screamed, creating more whips and kept hitting Izuku with more ferocious ferocity, hoping to kill him and hopefully get praised by All for One for this achievement. Izuku himself was getting more and more angry and ripped the flames apart before punching him again, but was slashed again by the flames, making him fall to the ground, holding his chest in pain from the attack. "How dare you? Because of you I'll have to move, and my master won't be pleased," he snarled before picking Izuku up by his neck and activating his flames, starting to burn his neck. "You'll die right here and now." Stars were starting to form in his vision from lack of air and pain he was in. It also started to fade to black. As the pain increased, he panicked, and before realizing it, an audible snap was heard and the pain stopped. Air quickly filled his lungs as he felt the villain's grip finally be released, along with the pain of the flames burning his neck. He did wince, feeling the burned flesh, though it thankfully didn't feel like second or third degree, giving he was trying to make him suffer. He slowly looked over to where the villain, and he realized what he did. He snapped his neck out of pure reflex to try and escape from him. "Darn it," he said as he looked at his hands, remembering all of the other villains he defeated before. He hated killing, but after so long in war against All for One and Shigaraki, he understood it was a necessary evil. "I need to call the cops so they can save all these people and get them home." 20 minutes later, Sukachi arrived at the warehouse where they were giving an anonymous tip from someone who sounded a lot like Izuku. He walked past the police tape and into the warehouse, where he saw lots of people ranging from 4 to 80 years old that were in hundreds of small cages that could barely fit one person, but 2 were shoved in it. As B walked, he saw unconscious villains laying on ground, while some looked to have broken bones, but the one thing that really concerned him was when he arrived where most of the officers were. They just put a blanket over a body of a villain who had his neck snapped. He really didn't know how to feel about this. All Might told him that Izuku left to go and fight villains, but this he won't be able to protect him with this now. "Tsukachi, good to see you here," said the police chief walking towards him. He was a tall man with the head of a dog, and he was extremely notorious with following the rules and laws regardless of the reason why they might have been broken. A couple years ago, he had a hero arrested and his license taken away because he crippled a known PDF file who touched her son. Likewise, he said automatically, "So why did you call me and Aizawa here?" He asked, gesturing to said man, who was talking to some of the other officers. The person who killed this man, along with crippling a bunch of other people for the last week, and also breaking bones of lots of thugs and villains, came from his school. This vigilante is a menace to society, and I won't tolerate it. I want his name and to know everything about him, so we can build up more information on him for other heroes and police to arrest him, said the police chief. "Sir, I'm sure there is a reason, I don't care for a reason. The second he started to fight without a license and he broke bones, crippled some, and finished this man. He lost all rights and shall be seen as nothing more than a criminal, so I want all the information you and Aizawa along with Yue has on him, or you'll all he arrested for helping a villain," the chief said, cutting off Tsukachi before he walked away. Meanwhile, with Aizawa, he found the security cameras and he watched the whole thing and sighed, "Problem child. You shouldn't be doing this. XX. Tomorrow." Ochako finished with a shower at Gunhead's agency when she saw her phone exploding with messages from her friends. She raised an eyebrow and lifted up the flip phone to see messages from friends, all saying the same thing. "Mina, look at the news now." "Momo. Ochako, you need to check out the news, but just know we are here if you need to talk." "Su. Ochako-chan, please don't do anything crazy, but check the news, and know that I'm here if you need to talk." "Toru, are you okay? I know you and Midori were really close, though I think it's 'cause he's nice and cute." Ochako was starting to get concerned reading these, but the last one made her blush. She then walked over and turned on the TV to the news, and her eyes went wide. In local news, the new vigilante that's been causing heroes and police problems for the last week has finally been identified as Izuku Midoriya, or as some of the people he's rescued, Deku. Last night around 1 a.m., he beat up a bunch of thugs, then left heading to a warehouse outside of Hosu where he beat up and crippled a bunch of human traffickers. Not only that, but he killed one of the villains in the warehouse last night, said the news reporter before she cleared her throat again to continue. "Because of this, we are charging Izuku Midoriya for murder, and if you have any information on him, please contact the police to help them with arresting this villain." Now with today's news, it's going to be a dash. Ochako tooled out what the lady was saying, and she simply looked down before out the window and held a hand up to her chest. "Deku, what happened to you?" she asked herself, looking out at the city. "Uraraka, you ready for your first patrol?" said Gunhead outside the door. "Yeah, just have to throw on my costume," she said. "Okay, you got 3 minutes, or you'll have to do extra push-ups when we get back," said Gunhead as he walked away. She began to put her costume on, but she just couldn't stop thinking about why Izuku would cripple villains, let alone live one. "Deku, I promise to help you next time we meet. I won't let you throw your life away like this. We were supposed to be heroes," she said with determination in her voice as she got dressed. All of her other classmates felt horrible or horrified finding out that Midoriya would do something like this, and it made them wonder one thing. What happened to Izuku to make him like this? Izuku was in an abandoned apartment, and he just finished sewing his wounds along with putting on burn cream on his neck and arms along with chest. He then looked at his damaged costume and sighed before grabbing it and tossing it to the side and stood up, walking to his backpack. He opened the bag and pulled out some ration bars that were made years ago. They were the size of your hand and packed full of nutrients and were surprisingly filling, given he's been living on these, and any time he allows himself to actually get himself an okay meal. He ripped the packaging off and began munching on it while looking at the new scars covering his body from all his fights in the last week. Lots of cuts, bruises, and burns along his entire body. Also some crappy stitching he had to teach himself back in the war while on the field. He continued to eat while looking out the window. He closed his eyes for a moment to sigh, but when he opened them again, he was pulled into his mindscape. His body was covered in the black, inky substance. But unlike before during his first time here, his mouth was free so he can talk. Ninth, I believe it's time we talk, said a voice he was all too familiar with. Izuku turned around and saw all the previous users except for the second and third were sitting in their seats looking at him. The other two were leaning against the wall staring at him with a look he was all too familiar with. Pity. We don't have anything to talk about, said Izuku, getting to the point. I'm doing our job, and I'm sure you all dig through my memories. So you already know my life. He looked at each of them, and their faces said it all. They did. Lend me your quirks, then I can end the pain and suffering that all for one has caused us all. Midoriya, we understand, said Nana, but was cut off by the glare he gave her. No, you don't. The closest people who do are the first three users that know the pain and suffering I went through. Besides, you all saw my life, so you know I won't stop. If I didn't let my friends get close to me again and I dropped my guard, then maybe we could have defeated him. Yet because I did, most of them were killed and had their quirks stolen and used against me, or they were turned into Nomu. Then I had to defeat them myself to put them out of their misery, said Izuku coldly. I'm doing what all 8 of you failed to do. I'm going to put a stop to it no matter what. And what about your friends and family? Said Banjo, looking at Izuku. They care for you and will try and save you. I won't let them. I'll stop them and make them fear and hate me so they'll abandon me. I won't let them get close to me again, just for me to watch them die all over again. The whole world can hate me for all I care. As long as I kill them and my friends and family are safe and alive, I'll live with it. I lost them once and I won't lose them again, said Izuku. Then what about the ones you loved? Remember we saw your memories and we knew you were with people to help alleviate some of the pain? Said En. I'll push them back the most. You know what all for one did to them. I had to finish them to stop them from suffering any more pain, said Izuku. Nana looked away, remembering those memories the most. The amount of pain she felt watching those made her break down into tears for just how much suffering Izuku has gone through in all for one's attempts to finally break AOFA user. Now it's my turn to ask you, why won't you let me use your quirks? Said Izuku, staring at them coldly. Remember, you said it yourself. Your body isn't physically ready, even with those gauntlets you own. Using any of our quirks before your body can naturally handle 20% would be suicide and do more harm than good, said the first. I see, he said as he was about to turn, but was stopped. Wait, I have a question for you. Why didn't you tell Aizawa to arrest Aoyama? He's the traitor, said the fifth. Because as messed up as this is going to sound, I need him to bring the league to the summer training camp, so I can take most of them all out at once, said Izuku. If I didn't, then they would cause more pain and suffering overall. That's heartless, said Nana, looking at him. I'm aware, but it's the best strategy to take out or kill some of them in a single night when they are all together, said Izuku. They didn't say anything else after that. Very well. Now since that's all, I'll be leaving, said Izuku as he turned and walked away. Don't talk to me unless it's to let me use your quirk. I don't need you ghosts trying to stop me, and going back this time. With that, he disappeared. The users were silent before the first placed his elbows on his knees and had his face in his hands. The burden they placed on Izuku has already killed him in a sense. He is so damaged he is pushing everyone away and will make himself look like a monster to protect all those he cares for and loves. Why did everything have to go bad during that battle? Or if only I was strong enough. Then he wouldn't be so hurt, said Nana as she began to cry. We can't change the past. All we can do is help Midoriya to fix his past mistakes since he somehow got a second chance. We have to support him or he'll truly break, said the second user. The other users reluctantly nodded in agreement before Banjo stood up. I'll give him my quirk first, like we saw in his memories. He needs to save that girl named Eri. It's eating him alive knowing she's suffering because he's not strong enough right now to kill Overhaul. They all watched him disappear into darkness in the same direction Izuku went off to. The first gripped his hands so tightly that if he was alive, they would be bleeding. Brother, you will pay for what you did to this boy, he said quietly to himself. All Might looked down and a tear rolled down his cheek as he hated himself even more. Izuku was suffering because he couldn't defeat All for One. For Izuku, he opened his eyes and saw that he was back in the abandoned apartment, and he sighed before walking over to the spot of the floor where he was going to sleep, but his body tensed as he heard talking somewhere else in the building. Ugh, I'm hungry. When can we get some food? Said a female voice in clear annoyance. Not yet. We have to make sure the cops didn't see us. Once I'm sure they didn't, then we can get food, said a deadpan, annoyed male voice. Izuku recognized both of those voices. They were from Himiko Toga and Dabi, or known as Toya Todoroki. These two were a mixed bag for Izuku, giving that yes they were villains. But after he found out why they became villains and the fact that All for One was the one that ruined both of their lives. For Himiko, he found out about her quirk and saw just how useful it'd be to have her as his puppet. So he had the doctor lie to her parents and tell them lies about her, and not to mention the blood banks to help people with blood-related quirks. Thanks to this, her parents both feared and hated her, and after so many years, Himiko finally snapped from never getting vital fluid and All for One pulling the strings on her life, making her a villain. For Dabi, All for One wanted to break Endeavor, so he paid all the right people to constantly talk about how All Might is stronger than Endeavor and how Hawks or other heroes will surpass Endeavor. He also paid off the news to constantly talk about this subject around the times that said hero would be at home, and the results spoke for themselves. Endeavor's inferiority complex made him lash out at his family and try and have a child with a better quirk while neglecting and hating his family for not giving him what he now wanted. After Izuku learned this straight from All for One's mouth, it all but made him hate the man even more than he already did. What hurt the most was that Himiko was present when he said that, and she, like so many others, sacrificed herself so he can put an end to All for One. But before she did, she looked at him and apologized for all the pain she caused. Izuku let out a sigh and thought it over. While both Himiko and Dabi did indeed commit crimes before they joined the League, they only did it because All for One pulled all the strings to make them villains. Maybe I can do the right thing and at least try and save them, or at least give them a chance, he thought to himself before grabbing his costume shirt and putting it on along with his mask and hood before he quietly headed downstairs to where he heard them. Meanwhile, a floor below him, both Himiko and Dabi were sitting in the same room. Himiko was playing with a knife, while Dabi was just resting and thinking on how he was going to kill his father for everything he did to him. They both didn't get to enjoy the peace and quiet for long when a dark figure covered in green lightning shot through the door and quickly shot towards Dabi and smashed his knee into his chin, knocking him out. Before he even hit the ground, the figure kicked off Dabi's chest and grabbed Himiko before pinning her to the ground and chopping her neck, knocking her out. I need to be faster. I used to be able to do this under 4 seconds, he said quietly to himself before he picked up both of them and walked away, heading to a different room. Dabi slowly opened his eyes, and he quickly realized that he was tied to a chair. He had to stifle a chuckle since he could easily burn his way out. But when he tried to, he didn't feel his quirk, which shocked him. Quirk suppressant quirk, so don't bother trying, said a dark figure hidden in the room. Dabi looked up and could barely make out the figure in the shadows, though he could see his green eyes that were glowing in the dark, which made it very creepy and nerve-wracking. He was pulled out of his thoughts when Himiko groaned. S&D slowly opened her eyes before realizing she was restrained and began to start to panic. I'm not going to hurt either of you. Instead, I'm going to give both of you a chance, said Izuku. A chance for what? Said Dabi, trying to stay calm while trying desperately to activate his quirk, but to no avail. To change your lives for the better and to not follow the path that an evil man put both of you on, said Izuku. PSSH, what the hell are you talking about? Growled Dabi. My life is my own, and I make my own decisions. Dabi, age 23, birthday January 18th. Quirk cremation, which allows you to make flames over 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, but your body can't handle it since it was meant to handle cold temperatures, which makes you start to burn yourself every time you use it longer than a couple seconds. Your real name is Toya Todoroki, the firstborn child of Enji Todoroki and Rei Todoroki, said Izuku. Dabi froze hearing that. He didn't even know what to do, and he began to feel fear enter his body as a cold chill went down his spine. Himiko Toga, age 16, birthday August 7th. Quirk transform. Allows you to drink someone's blood and transform into the person depending on how much you've consumed. After your quirk manifested, your family started to hate you and treat you like a monster and forced you to never drink vital fluid, which 10 years later caused you to have a mental breakdown and attack someone and drink his vital fluid before you ran away and knocked people out to drink their vital fluid, said Izuku. Now Himiko looked shocked and stared at him wide-eyed. How do you know that? She said, scared that he knows things that no one else except Dabi knows. I know lots of things, and maybe if we can come to a deal and I can help you two on the right path, I'll tell you one day. But till then it's my secret, said Izuku. What do you mean right path? I ain't becoming a hero, snarled Dabi. Is that because your father said you couldn't, or because you've decided not to be one, said Izuku. Dabi became silent at that comment. I'm no hero either. I mean, just yesterday I crippled a couple villains and Una lived one for human trafficking. I've given up my dream to be a hero, to be something else, said Izuku. And what's that? Said Himiko, slightly intrigued, while having a slight blush on her face, since if he was who she thought he was very cute in her eyes. I'm nothing, just someone who's working to protect people from the true monsters that ruined our lives and society, said Izuku, as he finally stepped out of the shadows and was now clearly visible to both of them. I will plunge myself into darkness to protect everyone I care for. I don't care if the whole world views me as a monster. Just as long as they get to live, that's all that matters to me anymore. You have hero qualities. Yet you're willing to act like a villain. You're not like every other hero out in the world, said Dabi. Not all heroes are bad. Yes, some may exist that only care for money. Yet the point is that they still protect people from villains, said Izuku. Is it right? No, but we humans aren't perfect. I mean, lots of heroes only care for the paycheck, but they still protect us. But on the same coin, we have wolves in sheep's clothing. Heroes who use their prestige or rank to do lots of unspeakable things or get away with things. Captain Celebrity is a perfect example of that. Then what are you suggesting we do? Said Himiko. Just be better people or protect innocent people from the shadows. It's not too late to prove all the naysayers wrong, said Izuku. You said you'll sink yourself into darkness to protect everyone, but what's your real goal, said Dabi. To kill and stop certain people to protect everyone I care for, and to make it so no one ever has to live through what I did, or you too did, said Izuku. Why do you want to finish them? I thought you were about to tell us that killing was wrong, said Himiko. That's a mixed bag. Some people out in the world deserve to be put 6 feet under, while others should be thrown in a prison and the key be tossed and forgotten, said Izuku. I have a couple of people who I will kill no matter what. They are too evil to let live and don't deserve a second chance or even time to repent. Both of them were shocked, but they could somehow understand what he meant. Some people deserve to be killed because they are simply too evil. If we did agree, what would we do, said Himiko. I'll simply let you go so you two can try and have a better life, said Izuku. I'm not going to drag you into my war. You two have suffered enough. Both of them looked at each other for a moment before they nodded. We'll follow you instead. Izuku looked at them confused. Why? You two have an opportunity to leave this life forever and simply live out in decent comfort. So why would you decide to stay with a person who's declared a one-man war against villains and the people who ruined thousands of lives? You've convinced me, said Dabi. Our society is broken and it needs to be fixed, and I want to fix it. And like you said earlier, I won't be someone's puppet. I make my own decisions. Same here, said Himiko. I don't want anyone else to live my life. Izuku looked into their eyes as they spoke and saw nothing but complete and brutal honesty. Very well, and don't betray my trust or you'll regret it, said Izuku as he undid the bindings on both of them, releasing them. I have food over there if you're hungry, along with water. Choose whatever room you want. I'm going to bed. They watched as Izuku walked away, and they both dug in and began to eat the bars and drink water with gusto. What do you think we'll be doing now, Dabi? Said Himiko as she took another bite of her food. He looked at her and sighed as he thought it over. I'm not sure. But he does know a lot about us. We should stick with him and also see how he knows so much. She nodded her head before going back to her food. Meanwhile, Izuku arrived back in his room and sat down on the floor getting ready for sleep. I hope I made the right choice. Just gotta make sure I don't let them get close to me also. I'll have to get ready for tomorrow. Ida will be trying to live stain. With that, his eyes slowly closed, and he silently hoped he'll be able to get more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep for once. Inko was sitting in what was left of Izuku's room, looking at a picture of her and him when he was just a baby. He was such a cute kid and had such a bright future ahead for him. The new vigilante Izuku Midoriya, or better known as Deku, is wanted for acts of vigilantism, breaking and entering, first-degree murder, and crippling a couple of people. If you have any information, we recommend you report it to the police to help with the investigation. If you do have information on him and do not give it to the police, then you shall be tried and arrested for obstructing a police and hero investigation. Not only that, but we have been informed that Deku also attacked and ended up crippling the hero Captain Celebrity, though the police seem to be covering up the reason why. Also, in recent news, 3 villains were found in an alley where 2 of them were embedded into a wall, while the last was laying on the ground with a broken spine. It is believed this is from the Vigilante D. The TV was turned off by Inko as she looked down. The news was all but gobbling up this story and making Izuku sound like a monster. A couple of tears rolled down her cheek as she looked around his empty room. After it was revealed that it was Izuku, the police came to her home and took all of his stuff for evidence, and now, wherever she goes, she needs to have an officer watch over her in case Izuku comes back. They took every single photo of him, and there was only one she was able to keep was her photo album, thanks to a police detective and Izuku's teacher Strong arming in to let her keep it. "Oh, Izuku, what happened to my baby boy?" she said, tracing her hand over the picture of him on his 5th birthday. She then laid on his bed and began to cry, wondering what could have made her baby be like this, and if it was her fault since she wasn't a good mother. Far away near Hosu in a run-down, abandoned apartment, Himiko woke up with a stretch as she looked around her room, where she had some clothes and a mattress. Grumbling about it not being cute enough, she got out of her bed and walked to the kitchen where, thankfully, the water and oven still worked, though that was thanks to Izuku turning them on. She went to the stove and began to boil some water in the tea kettle when her eyes spotted the other person in the room. It was Izuku, who just came back from a 17-hour patrol, then training for 4 hours straight, and only fell asleep maybe 2 hours ago. He was sleeping on the hard floor since he said he isn't used to soft beds. He's used to hard floors and either laying on them or sitting upright against a wall. He was a strange person, since the news said he was a UA student who just suddenly turned into a vigilante for no reason. He had, from what little he said, a good home life, so it didn't make sense why he was so cold and dark and why with some villains he didn't hesitate in killing them. It was something herself and Dabi found to be very confusing and interesting, given that, also for how it seemed he was targeting certain villains in his patrols. She sighed and went back to the pot and started to make some instant ramen for all of them before she could even open up the package. Izuku woke up and stood up with massive bags under his eyes. 2 hours. That's good enough, he said, standing up and heading to the kitchen area to grab something to put in his stomach. He grabbed a bottle of water and a sandwich which Himiko made before he left to go back on patrol. "Wait, Izuku, where are you going?" she said, hoping he'd spend time with her and Dabi. "Patrolling," he said as he opened the door. "I might contact you and Dabi later for something." He then left through the door. Himiko looked down and sighed. She wished he wouldn't work himself half to death every day. Outside of the building, Izuku looked down at his phone that showed the date, and he remembered what day this was. It was the battle for Hosu, where Stain will try to finish off Ida, and Shigaraki will have his Nomu destroy the city. "I need to try and kill Shigaraki, but the problem is that I also have to save Ida and Native along with stopping as many Nomu as I can to save lives," he said, standing up looking out towards the city where the sun was just rising. He jumped off the building and began his patrol. Far away from Izuku's patrol in a bar, 3 figures could be seen, with one of them laying in the ground, while a different one was laying against the bar. The third and final figure had the first one pinned to the ground with 2 knives. One was pinned next to his head, while the other was slammed into his shoulder. "You're nothing more than a child throwing a temper tantrum. You have no true goals or convictions," said Stain in absolute disgust. "Give me a reason why I shouldn't purge you right now. You're just a fake. I hate you like the others. I just want to destroy this society S&D, everything it stands for, especially All Might. It's all his fault," said Shigaraki. Stain glared at him. "Then it seems I should finish you," he said as he pulled the pinned blade from the floor and went to stab him. But Shigaraki quickly grabbed the blade, and it immediately turned to rust and became a small pile on the ground. "I'd ask you to not kill him," said a voice from the TV. All the hairs on Stain's body stood up, and he felt as if a cold hand just grabbed his spine. In a flash, he jumped backwards and had his hand on his sword as he stared at the static screen of the TV. That voice was so calm and friendly, but it felt as if death itself was speaking to him. "Who are you?" he said, glaring at the TV. "Me? I'm simply someone who wishes to fill out Shigaraki's dream. That's all," said the voice from the TV. Stain felt very at edge, but he relented and stopped his quirk's control on both Shigaraki and Kurojiri. Before he spoke, "Send me back. I want to finish my hunt in Hosu." Kurojiri opened a portal, and Stain left without saying a word. "I want to unalive him," seethed Shigaraki. "Patience, Tamura. We can use this to our advantage," said the TV. "How so, master?" "That's quite simple. We make it seem that Stain is part of our cause. With that we can recruit more followers for our cause," said the TV. "Also, I'm quite interested in something." "What's that, master?" said Shigaraki confused. This new vigilante named Deku, he's All Might's successor, and yet he's so dark and is willing to kill people. I had Garaki find out more about him, and nothing during his life shows why he'd be like this, said the TV. It might be possible to turn him to our side with his given darkness. But master, I want to do it, snapped Shigaraki. If he proves useless to us, then you will be allowed to dispose him. But if he does prove to be useful, then imagine how entertaining it'd be to have All Might be defeated by his own successor, said the TV with a dark chuckle at the end. Shigaraki smiled evilly at that. I now understand, master, but first I want some Nomu to go and destroy Hosu. The TV was silent for a little bit before it spoke. Very well. I'll have Garaki get you 4 Nomu for this. Thank you, master, he said before he walked away to get ready for the massacre tonight. Meanwhile, in a dark underground base, the man speaking through the TV turned it off and leaned back with his hand propping his chin up. Izuku Midoriya, huh? I wonder what made you this way, along with if I'll be able to turn you to my side. After all, one for all is my quirk, said All for One with a sickening grin forming on his face, and it looked as if his eyeless sockets had a red glow for his eyes. It was almost night now, and 3 figures were standing on a rooftop together. One of them was Deku, while the other 2 are his new partners, as they called themselves. Dabi looked out towards the city and took a long drag from a cigarette he was holding. So what are we doing? Waiting, said Deku as he waited for the chaos to unfold. Well, while we are waiting, what do you want us to do? Said Himiko, looking excited to finally do something. Deku was silent for a moment before he spoke. Himiko, I want you to use a syringe or something to get blood samples of the Nomu creatures that attack. After that, Dabi will kill them quickly and painlessly as possible. Nomu? What are those? Said Dabi. Creatures that shouldn't even exist, said Deku. Well, you're the boss, and you pay me, so sure, said Dabi. Deku looked at him with a blank expression. Even with his mask, I don't pay you. You just decided to follow me. It's the thought that counts, said Himiko, joining in. Why didn't I just tell them no and forget they ever saw me, thought Deku. Just then a massive explosion ripped through the night sky as flames and smoke started to fill the air along with the screams of civilians. Remember your jobs, get vital fluid samples, and defeat the Nomu, while also making sure they don't hurt any civilians, said Deku, standing up. And what will you do? Said Dabi. I'm going to clean up a stain, he said before green lightning arched around him and he shot off into the night sky. He's so hot, said Himiko with a dreamy look in her eyes. You're just saying that since he feeds you vital fluid, said Dabi. Not just that, but also because he is really cute, she said, giggling. Good luck, Deku. You're gonna need it, thought Dabi as he jumped down and started to head towards the chaos with Himiko following close behind. Over with Deku, he was soaring through the city heading towards where Stain was. But as he was doing this, he looked around and saw the chaos that was unfolding here. It made his blood boil seeing all this chaos unfold because of Shigaraki and All for One wanting to rule Japan and the world, no matter the cost. He was pulled out of his thoughts when he saw a winged Nomu heading towards him. It let out a screech and began to fly even faster, seeing Deku. Deku kicked off the roof towards the Nomu. He saw it dive to him with its clawed legs outstretched to grab him. Deku kicked the air and flew higher, being right above the Nomu, and he then used a move that Maruko taught him during the short time they dated, before Shigaraki killed her. He tucked his arms into his chest and twisted his whole body to his hips to get as much torque as possible. When he did, he cranked the power up to 30% for a mere moment and launched his leg at the Nomu Kagaya Crescent. His foot smashed straight into its neck, and the sheer amount of force from the kick ripped its head right off its body in a mere instant. The body of the Nomu fell to the ground with a loud thud and laid motionless, given Deku killed it in a mere moment. Another large explosion went off in the distance, and Deku quickly shot off heading towards that direction to save Ida and Native from Stain. You villain, yelled Ida, glaring murder at Stain as the villain gave him a impassive glare. That's not the look of a hero. You're just another fake, he said as he walked towards him and brought his sword up to get ready to finish him. Native watched this and hoped that maybe if the teen died, he might live. Because of that, he tried to move his body to escape, but he still couldn't move a single inch. Stain's eyes snapped to him and Native froze under his glare. You fake heroes truly are disgusting. I could tell you were trying to escape the moment I tried to kill this fake hero. Because of that, I'm going to make sure your death is even more painful. His eyes then went back to Ida, and he raised his sword up high. This is for a just society. His sword came down, but Stain was met with a metal sole of a shoe right to the face, which sent him flying backwards and slamming into a dumpster before he fell to the ground and painfully stood up. "Midoriya?" said Ida, shocked at seeing him. "Once you can move, leave," he said, not taking his eyes off of Stain. "And oh, he's mine," screamed Ida. "He crippled my BROD." He was cut off when Izuka kicked him across the face, shocking native, but intriguing Stain. "I don't care. You're not a hero, Ida. You're just a man throwing a hissy fit. You don't have what it takes to do what is necessary, and you're fighting for nothing but revenge. You're no hero, and your brother would be disappointed in you," said Deku coldly as he turned around to look at Stain. "I know you're Deku, the new vigilante and the man that Shigaraki is hell-bent on unalving you," he said. "So tell me, Deku, what is your goal? Why did you throw away your life and left UA to become a vigilante that is even willing to kill?" "I'm doing this to protect everyone and to not fail again. I'm willing to soak my hands in blood to ensure everyone I care for is safe," said Deku. A smile formed on Stain's lips. "You're more of a hero than almost everyone I've met. Let's put your resolve to the test," he said before he sprinted forward. Deku moved in, and his eyes tracked Stain's sword, and he ducked under the swing and drove his fist straight into his gut, making him fly up in the air. Deku then jumped up and slammed his other fist into him, making him fly backwards from the force of the punch. Stain fell to the ground and held his ribs in pain since he felt that at least 5 of them were broken from those punches. He then quickly grabbed 2 knives and threw them at Deku while he sprinted forward to get back into the fight. He just needed to cut him and lick his vital fluid, and then he would have won. "Detroit smash," said Deku, punching the air and releasing a massive air blast that acted like a cannon. The blast destroyed THR Alley, and Stain only just managed to dodge it, but he then realized he made another mistake. He was hanging off a fire escape, and his body was exposed. Deku seemingly appeared before him by using 15% and kicked him right in his arm, snapping, while the force of the kick broke more of his ribs and sent him flying through the wall of the building. "Darn it, it's like he knows my moves and isn't letting me get close, or he just moves faster. Not only that, but now I have a broke arm," thought Stain in anger. "Are you going to surrender? I have much more important people to hunt, and 3 I have to kill," said Deku. "Why, I can't wrap my head around you. You were at UA, and yet you threw it away, and now are a vigilante and are killing some villains or beating them up, and some you cripple," said Stain, standing up with gritted teeth. "None of this makes sense no matter how much you think about it. Your goals and motives aren't hero-like, and yet at the same time, you're the most heroic person besides All Might that I have ever met. You wouldn't understand or believe me if I was to sit here and explain the entire thing to you," said Deku, as green lightning arched around him, and he charged forward. Stain moved out of the way and got ready to continue the fight. "Burn," said Dabi as he burned a Nomu that Himiko just finished getting vital fluid from. "I think we only have that one that shoots lightning left since Endeavor killed the first," she said, holding up 2 vials of vital fluid. We should head to where the chaos is unfolding in case we need to help," he said as he started to head that way. I hope Isaac gives me lots of his vital fluid for the good work I did," Himiko chirped as she pulled up her face mask and started to skip while following Dabi. It didn't take them long to arrive in the main street. They saw lots of heroes trying to help civilians, while others were trying to put out the fires. In the distance, they also saw Endeavor killing the lightning Nomu before he started to walk away with a teen with red and white hair following him. "Seems we're done here. It'd be stupid for us to try and get the vital fluid with this many eyes on us," said Dabi, glaring pure hatred towards Endeavor. Himiko nodded her head, and they were about to leave when one of the building's walls exploded outwards. Stain went flying out, and he slammed into a car and spit out fluid from the impact. He slowly looked up, and he had to force his body to move to dodge Deku. A green blur slammed into the car, caving in the roof of the vehicle before he turned towards the hero killer. Stain's body was a mess. He had a broken arm, broken ribs, and multiple fractures along with massive bruising that was forming all over his body. Deku bent his knees slightly, and the smell of ozone was in the air as he increased his power. "You are right that lots of heroes are fakes and don't deserve licenses. But where you are wrong is targeting all heroes. Not everyone can be All Might. I'm no All Might, but I will fight and die to save and protect people, even if it means I have to kill to ensure it." Stain looked at him with bloodshot eyes and foggy vision. He couldn't fully make it out, but it looked as if All Might was standing behind him. as if he was passing the torch. Yui said between pain breaths, "Are a true hero Izuku Midoriya now. Finish this battle." Deku said nothing in response, and he shot forward with his arm reared back Kansas smash. The blow folded Stain over and sent him flying into the wall where he smashed into it and collapsed on the ground unconscious, but had a small smile since he knew that society was in safe hands with him. Seeing that he was finally unconscious, Deku let out a sigh before he looked off towards the other heroes who were staring at him. He ignored them all, even Endeavor who was charging at him, since he saw someone in the distance. Tamura Shigaraki. Rage he hasn't felt in a long time flooded through him, and the ground under him shattered as he jumped to his gauntlet's maximum. 45% he whispered before he seemingly disappeared and appeared on Endeavor's shoulder, who tried to attack him was too slow. His foot landed down on said man's shoulder, and all the force and momentum went straight to it, snapping his collarbone in half. He used the number 2's body as a springboard before he shot off towards Shigaraki. Todoroki tried to stop him, but he couldn't even turn his head before Izuku was gone. Game-o. Shigaraki stopped mid-sentence as he saw all this unfold, and then Deku appear right in front of him with murder in his eyes. 45% Texas smash, he screamed as his fist flew forward. Hirojiri reacted as fast as he could and opened a portal taking him and Tamura away, but he wasn't fast enough. The force of the punch hit Shigaraki head-on, and he was sent flying into his bar and smashed through multiple walls before he crumbled to the ground a broken and barely alive mess. Hirojiri closed the portal as fast as he could before another punch could make it through. He then ran to Tamura and found his broken body on the ground. He was barely breathing, and he looked more like a pin cushion with the amount of pieces of broken wood in him. He said, puking out a massive glob of vital fluid from his shattered jaw and broken skull. The right side of his face was scarred beyond recognition, and the eye was also destroyed. Hirojiri quickly opened another portal left the destroyed bar since he could hear police sirens from the explosion, and he took Shigaraki to Dr. Garaki in hopes that he might be able to save Tamura. Back with Izuku, he saw the portal close, and he let out a scream in rage seeing that he wasn't 100% sure if he killed Shigaraki or not. But the one thing he knew he did was delay any plans that All for One had. A gunshot was heard and Deku dodged the bullet with practiced ease, and he looked down to the ground seeing officers shooting at him, with heroes charging at him. Letting out a growl, he shot off into the night to loose the cops and heroes. As he soared through the sky, he sent a message to both Dabi and Himiko to drop off the Vita fluid samples to a detective named Sakachi. "I need to unlock Black Whip faster, no telling what All for One will do now that I openly tried to finish his new body," he said to himself, leaving the area at a faster rate now. Not only that, but I can't let him find out about Eri. "I love you, Papa," he heard in the back of his head as an image flashed of Eri running up to him and hugging him as tightly as her little arms could let her. "Never again, I won't let you hurt them ever again, All for One," he said as some of the lightning around his body turned black from his rage. All for One was standing next to Garaki as he looked at Tamura, who was in an embiotic tank to help accelerate his healing. He even had to give him 2 of his healing quirks to make it go faster, or else he would have taken months to heal. "Tell me, Kirojiri, what happened?" he said in a cold, flat tone that didn't betray any emotion. Kirojiri flinched at hearing that. Taking a large gulp to remove the lump in his throat, he spoke. "The heroes were taking out the Noma, though 2 of them were seemingly killed by blue fire. Then after the last 2 died, we were about to leave when we saw Deku take down Stain then." "Then what?" he said, making Kirojiri sweat more. "He saw us, then out of nowhere he appeared right in front of us, and it was only because I was already opening a portal that Tamura survived." All for One said nothing and remained silent for a couple of moments as he watched the healing quirks and healing properties of the embiotic slowly healing him. "I see, it seems he's more dangerous than I thought," he said quietly to himself. Turning to Garaki, he continued to contact the Hero Association and give them a large amount of money to send hero teams after Deku. Even with him having OFA, he'll be too much of a threat. "At once, Master," said Garaki, walking off to call his contacts in the upper levels of the Hero Association. "Izuku Midoriya, you're too much of a threat," he said with a slight tone of anger, "but just in case. I need to make some contingency plans." XX. "Izuku, I want to give you something," said Eri, walking up to Izuku holding a small letter in her hands, while behind her, Ochako, Toru, Momo, Su, and Mina, along with Aizawa, encouraging her forward. "What's up, Eri?" he said with a slightly tired expression, looking at her while cooking something in the pot. Deku's fist slammed into the face of a man on the ground. It was beaten badly, with it barely recognizable, with missing teeth and massive swollen lumps. "PLSH, stop," the man said while spitting out blood, but was met by Deku's fist again. Izuku squatted down to her level and saw that Eri looked both embarrassed and nervous as she played with the letter in her hand. She said as a blush formed on her face, making her look more adorable. "I want to give you this," she said as she shakily gave it to him. He took the letter from her and saw in the corner of his eyes she was playing with the hem of her red skirt while looking down at the ground with her cheeks being stained red. The man screamed in pain as he tried to use his arm to push Deku away, but his arm was grabbed and snapped like nothing. Behind Deku was Dabi as he watched this with a glare. The man that Deku was beating to death was a monster, something not even his own father would ever do. He was a PDF file and used his hero status to lure kids that liked him. Dabi was pulled out of his thoughts as he heard crying. He looked back to the bed and saw Himiko comforting the little girl that the hero had with him. She wrapped her up in a blanket and was trying to calm her down. Izuku froze when he read the letter. It was an adoption form. Eri was asking him to adopt her. "Well, will you be my dad?" she said, extremely nervous on what he'll say. A tear ran down his cheek, and he reached out and pulled her into a tight hug. "Yes, Eri, I'll be your dad," he said, feeling genuinely happy after all the pain him and everyone went through over the past year, since UA was destroyed. "Thank you, Dad," she said, hugging him just as tightly. He smiled happily as he held his daughter in his arms. He gently kissed her horn, which made her giggle in happiness. Deku stood up as he glared at the broken form of the hero under him. He was a broken mess and was barely conscious from the beating he took. "Monsters like you don't deserve to live, especially since you then sell the kids when you're done." Deku seethed out as he picked him up. "I'm sorry," he said through his broken jaw. "Please, mercy," Dabi said Deku as he held the hero by his neck outwards. "With pleasure," he said, raising his arm and shooting out a wave of flames. The fire hit the hero directly, and he started to scream even more in pain. He was then suddenly pulled to the window and had to look Deku right in the eyes. "Burn in hell," said Deku before he raised his leg and kicked him out the window, making him both fall and burn to death. "Izuku," said Himiko, looking at him as he glared out the window towards the man with nothing but pure hatred. "What will we do with her?" she said, gesturing to the little girl. "Wait for the police to show up. Then we leave," he said as more bolts of green and black lightning arched around his body. "What will we do afterwards?" said Dabi. "Hunt down a couple of villains and heroes along with some toxin and human trafficking rings," said Deku. The other two nodded, and in the distance they could hear the sound of police and ambulance sirens, which meant it was about time to leave. About 10 minutes later, Tsukauchi arrived at the top floor of the apartment penthouse where the murder occurred. Officers were already searching for clues, and a detective on scene was talking to the little girl. "Tsukauchi, good to see you," said Sansa, walking towards him. "So I got a quick gist of the situation, but what's really going on?" he said, looking at his longtime friend and colleague. "From what we've found so far, it's a hero that was killed, but that's not the worst part. He was a PDF file, and we found lots of evidence that he used his hero status to lure kids in. After that, he'd sell them to human traffickers to make a quick buck," said Sansa, looking physically sick from just talking about it. Tsukauchi wasn't far off. No matter how many horrible cases he saw and went through, the ones like this always made him sick to his stomach, and in all honesty, wished he could have an hour with the person so he could beat him or her for that entire hour. "Okay, so who defeated the hero?" said Tsukauchi. "We believe it was Deku. We didn't catch any security camera footage on him arriving. The only footage we have was of the hero falling and burning to his death," said Sansa. He was about to talk when the chief walked in with a man who had a stone-cold face that didn't betray a single emotion. "All of you are relieved and can go home. The Hero Association will take care of this case now," said the chief as he walked into the room with an agent next to him. "What? But Chief Wie," he said before being cut off by the Hero Association agent. "He told you to leave. This is our job now. Now go, or else there will be consequences." The police were reluctant, but all left, and as they walked out, they passed more agents of forensics, members of the Hero Association, waiting in the hall. "So this case is all yours. What do you want to do with the clear evidence of this hero being a PDF file?" said the chief. "Erase it all and pay off the family to keep quiet." If they don't, then we'll take care of it, said the agent, looking around the room. We can't let society crumble because of some vigilante changing the status quo. The chief nodded his head and walked out of the room to leave it to the Hero Association. They knew what was best for society. After all, they were all run by powerful people in the government. Hey guys, how was your internships? Said Denki, not really sure what to say given that they all saw Izuku on TV fighting Stain and even breaking Endeavor's collarbone. We're good, I guess, said Ojiro, not really sure what to say. So, did any of you see the news a couple days ago, along with last night, said Kirishima. Yeah, I did, said Ochako as she remembered it. The vigilante, or villain named Deku, has broken into the house of the hero Cloud Jumper and brutally beat him before throwing him out his own apartment window. No evidence has been found why he would do that, and police along with Hero Association members believe it was an act of aggression. Something about that didn't seem right to her. Izuku would never do anything like that for no reason. Her and the other girls talked about it, and none of them could wrap their heads around it. Why would he just kill a hero for no reason? They talked about this and everything else over the last week. Nothing made sense. From him pushing everybody away, to him keeping himself far away from them, and finally leaving UA and became a vigilante. They all asked the teachers, and they, including the rest of the class, noticed one thing. When they asked Aizawa or All Might, a painful expression appeared on their faces before they either changed the topic or said they couldn't answer. Just then the door opened, and Aizawa walked into class with no bandages on his body. Welcome back, class. I'm sure your internships were very productive for all of you, said Aizawa. The students nodded in agreement, and before he could begin the class's lesson, Mina raised her hand. Yes, Ishido. Sir, is what the news is saying about Midori true? She said, honestly hoping that he wasn't brutally slaying heroes. He was too cute and nice for something like that. Aizawa sighed and sat down in his chair staring at one. It's true that he did kill that hero. Some were shocked at hearing it was true. So does that mean we are going to have to fight him? Said Tokoimi. In Aizawa's mind, a memory of Izuku's came to him. Izuku, please finish me. I don't want to hurt my friends, said Tokoimi in a monstrous form, since All for One got his hands on him. No, Tokoimi, I won't kill you. I'm not sure, he said, but I hope you won't have to, for both your sake and his own. But he's a villain now, and we should stop him, said Mineta, terrified at the idea of fighting him. The girls and most of the guys all glared at him. Ochako was about to yell at him, but surprisingly Katsuki beat her to it. Don't you ever call him a villain, he snapped at Mineta, glaring at the midget. Mineta shrunk into his seat, but Ojiro then spoke up. I mean, he does have a point. Midoriya is unaliving people now, or even crippling them. That also includes heroes now. He's basically a villain. I'm sure he has a reason, said Ochako, standing up. Yeah, I mean, think about it. After the sports festival, he just suddenly changed, said Toru, standing up. Deku has a reason, and when we see him, we will ask him. Right, guys? Said Ochako. Most of the class nodded in agreement while a couple of them didn't. Izuku crossed a line and they just couldn't gloss it over. He unalived people and heroes don't do it no matter the circumstances. I saw him, said Ida, getting the entire class's attention. All eyes were on him, and he continued to speak. I went to try and defeat Stain, but the hero killer beat me with a single cut. Then Midoriya showed up and just dominated the fight. The hero killer didn't even stand a chance against him. Not only that, but he didn't pull any punches and was going for ending the fight without killing him. That may be so, but he's defeated a hero, said Mineta. He's a villain now, not a 6. He was slapped across the face by Momo, who was glaring at him. Midoriya may have done horrible things, but it's our job as heroes to save people, and Midoriya talked about that all the time, as his classmates and friends. Our job to help him and find out why he's doing this, she said. A division was formed in the class, with a good chunk defending him while others couldn't. And sadly, one of the ones who couldn't defend him was Ida, even though he saved him, because he couldn't even forgive himself for trying to. As all this happened, Aizawa watched this and hoped that maybe, just maybe, Izuku's classmates and others will be able to save him from this dark path he's walking. He then turned around and went to the blackboard. Today's hero lesson will be about hostage situations and how to deal with them. We're going to start with a villain holding one hostage, and before summer starts, I want all of you to be able to handle multiple villains and hostages. Meanwhile, deep down in Tartarus, the president of the Hero Association entered a room with 2 assassins. She sat down at the table and looked at them. I've got both of you here for a special assignment. I want you two to unalive someone who's a threat to society, she said in a cold, emotionless tone. I'd never work for a corrupt organization like yours, said Stain in heavy bandages and casts on his body from the fight against Deku. Lady Nagant just glared at her and said nothing while being heavily restrained to the chair she was in. You two don't have a choice, she said coldly while pulling out 3 files from her bag and putting one on the table. It showed a picture of Izuku and showed App the available information on him that they knew. You are to unalive this boy. He's a threat to our society. Like I told you. No. Trash like you deserve to rot in the darkest pits of hell, said Stain. You threw me in jail for unalving your board and old president. So you won't get anything from me, said Nagant. The president didn't react at all and put 2 folders down and opened them, making both of them freeze. If you don't follow our orders and unalive Izuku Midoriya, then we shall unalive your families before your eyes and hang their corpses in front of your cells, she said in the same cold, emotionless tone. Stain was glaring in pure hatred as he looked at her, then the picture of his father who moved to South Korea. For Kana, she was looking at a picture of her elderly mother who was in a retirement home. You're nothing but a monster, you're just as bad as the villain, screamed Stain, trying to stand up, but an agent behind him grabbed the back of his head and slammed him so hard into the table he left a dent in the metal. I'm not a villain. I'm just a person who is going to protect our society and ensure we continue to lead then on the right path, she said, not even flinching at Stain's outburst. You people are true monsters, said Kana. Monster is a relative term. To a canary, a cat is a monster, she said. Now to help ensure you're doing your jobs, we'll insert a chip at the base of both of your necks with a kill switch. If you fail to finish him, you die. If are caught, your family dies. If you try and warn anyone, then you will die along with your family. Both of them felt rage building up in them. Fine, see that out, Kana. Stain made a grunt with his face still being pinned to the table. As this conversation continued, one of the guards sent a message to someone on his phone, hoping that this won't be on his radar anymore. XX. A message went off on a phone, and Deku picked it up. He began reading the message and sighed. Now he'll have worry about those 2 hunting him. He then looked back at his phone. This information will be enough for him to ignore the guard's crimes for now. Because of me, things are changing from how they were supposed to happen. I'll have to be careful since I already changed some massive events which most likely created a butterfly effect, said Deku as he looked out at an apartment from a different rooftop he was on. He was watching his mom sleeping in her room, holding a picture of him. I'm sorry, Mom, but this is the only way to protect you. I promise I won't let you get hurt, he said, standing up and leaping away into the night. As he ran, he tried to will Black Whip since he was at 20% now, but all he got was very tiny wisps. He concluded that he'll have to train harder and push himself more to finally get this quirk back, then hopefully get either Float or Smokescreen next. His ear twitched, and he turned and caught a white blur. Luna Fall, yelled Maruko, coming down to kick him. Deku raised both his arms and held it as a X to block the strike. He flew down and smashed into a roof where he slid a ways before coming to a skidding halt. Looking up, he saw her land on the ground with a large smile on her face. I love you, Izuku, said Rumi as she trailed her robotic finger on his chest and gently kissed his cheek while laying on bed. I love you too, Rumi, he said, kissing her forehead, making her ears flop down as she snuggled closer to him. Deku looked at her with a pained expression as memories of them being together flooded his mind, and then her being Aerith's 3rd mother figure since both Ochako and Mina died. So you're Deku, huh? She said, walking towards him with a large grin. Let's fight. It's been a long time since I've had a good fight. He said nothing as he looked down to the ground. Then green and black lightning arched around him as he looked up at her. I'm sorry, Maruko, but I don't have time to fight you, and I don't want to hurt you. Rumi grinned in both excitement and annoyance. Oh, so you think you can hurt me? Let's see if you can, she said, cracking the ground as she shot forward. Izuku, after all of this, can we start a family? Said Rumi. He looked at her shocked before he smiled and gently cupped her chin and kissed her. Yes, Rumi, when all of this is over, let's start a family. Rumi smiled happily and laid her hand on his chest over his heart as she listened to it. I'm happy. 1 week later. I'm sorry, Izuku, said Rumi. Rumi screamed, Izuku, forcing his body up and charging forward as Shigaraki took his hand off her. I love why. Her body crumbled to dust before Izuku's eyes. Ha 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 ha, Shigaraki laughed as he watched the pain and anguish of Izuku. Seeing how much pain he was in was hilarious to watch. Shigaraki screamed Izuku as the stress of it all caused parts of his hair turn white, and black lightning appeared around his body. Deku looked at her with sad, broken eyes and dodged a kick from her. He now would have to fight one of the people he loved, and even now, after everything, still loved along with the others he dated. So, this was the end of part 1 of this series. Stay tuned for next part of this series, and if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.